Good afternoon and welcome to True Crime Mysteries. If you're new to the channel, hello and welcome, and if you're returning, welcome back. Today we are discussing the murder of Dan Brophy, who was killed in cold blood by his wife, Nancy Cranston-Brophy. Let's get into it. Can you ever truly know someone? What if you found out your spouse, who you trusted implicitly and never thought they would hurt you, had been fantasizing about your murder, possibly even for years? And this isn't advice of any sort, but if you were to murder your spouse, you certainly shouldn't write about it in a blog, detailing the innermost thoughts on exactly how one might carry out the attack and get away with it. Nancy Cranston-Brophy did just that in 2011, penning the article How to Murder Your Husband, and starting her article by saying, "As a romantic suspense writer, I spend a lot of time thinking about murder, and consequently about police procedure. After all, if the murder is supposed to set me free, I certainly don't want to spend any time in jail. And let me say clearly for the record, I don't like jumpsuits, and orange isn't my color." When Nancy Cranston-Brophy was initially arrested, it was felt by the Portland community. They had rallied behind her and supported her when her husband had been murdered. Nancy appeared to have been a devoted wife, and their marriage had seemed to be very solid. A couple nearing retirement seemed to be heading into the next chapter of their lives together. Her arrest made people question how well they really knew Nancy. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's start from the beginning. It was early September morning on June 2nd, 2018 at the Oregon Culinary Institute located in downtown Portland, Oregon. A group of culinary students gathered outside the school, waiting for the building to be unlocked for class to begin. This was unusual, but not necessarily an immediate cause for concern. Normally their instructor, 63-year-old Dan Brophy, Chef Brophy, was first to arrive on campus and set up the classroom for the students. Saturday classes were a little bit different than the normal Monday to Friday. There weren't any office or administrative staff that worked over the weekend, and the school only ran 2 classrooms. It was usually only the weekend culinary arts instructor and the pastry instructor. There weren't even janitorial staff over the weekend due to budget cuts. This morning was a little more unique than most. It was a portion of the program called Live Fire Class, where near the end of the program, students would be setting up their school restaurant and opening up to real guests. It was something the students had been working towards for months and an opportunity to show off their skills. On these live fire class days, Dan would always come to school a little bit earlier than normal. In addition to his normal routine of opening up the kitchens, he would also make sure the students had everything they needed for a day doing restaurant service.
And so when you got to OCI that morning, do you remember around what time you arrived?
I believe I arrived around between 8 and 8:15.
And is that normal for you?
Yeah. I believe our classes started at 8:30. And so we always had a few minutes to put our stuff away, get dressed and ready for our class and be in the classroom when it was time to start.
Okay. And when you say get dressed and ready, what do you mean by that?
We had a dress code of pants and a chef jacket and a hat and an apron. So we had to have all of those things on when the class started. So oftentimes people came either in street clothes and changed into it, or, partial outfits and had to prepare themselves for that. So.
Okay. All right. And so when you arrived that morning and parked your car, you parked in that same parking lot you've described?
Yes.
And if you're able to, can you tell from looking at this which side of the board or the building the parking lot is on?
The top. So where it says student entrance, Southwest Madison, and then the garbage and recycling, that's where the parking lot was.
Okay. And so when you parked that morning, did you see anyone else? What did you do?
There were multiple students in the parking lot when I arrived, awaiting at that student entrance door.
And is that usual?
No. No, usually they were outside of the door. The door was locked. And usually when we arrived, that door was already unlocked.
And which door are you referring to?
The student entrance, Southwest Madison.
Okay, the top of the board there?
Yep.
Okay. And you said there were a lot of students?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember how many, but I remember that there were a group of us students waiting there.
And so did you get out of your car and wait with them?
I did, yeah.
Okay. And do you remember about how long you waited or what happened?
Not very long. We were there a few minutes. And then Chef Damon came to that door from the inside and let us in.
And do you recall if it was just pastry students or if there were culinary students?
It was both.
Okay.
Yep.
And so the door, when you say that door, are you referring to the student entrance?
Yes.
And you said she came from the inside?
Yes.
So she was in the building?
Yes.
Okay. And unlocked the door?
Yes.
All right. And did you see where she went from there?
No, I did not. No.
Okay. And where did you go?
Right into the student lounge with lockers, and there were round tables in the student lounge, and I remember exactly which table I went to.
And did you sit at it or
I was standing there, had my bag and my box of supplies, and I was chatting with the other people in the room.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as States Exhibit 4, if we can put up the screen. Oh, 5, excuse me. And if you can just pause it. And do you see that in front of you on the screen there?
Yes.
And can you tell us what we're looking at?
Excuse me. That is the student lounge.
Okay. And so it looks like there's a railing just to the
right.
And what is behind you if you're facing
That's
this
the student entrance. Right behind. If I was standing where the camera is, the student entrance would be right behind me.
Okay. And so then in front and kind of to the left, are those the tables you're referring to?
Yeah.
All right. At this time, I'd offered States Exhibit 5 and request permission to play for the jury.
No objection.
And we saw there in that video some other tables. And are those the tables you were talking about?
Yep.
And do you remember what part of that room you were standing in?
That first table, so it would be the one, the bottom right of the screen.
Okay.
That one, yep.
That one. All right. And you said you were talking to some other students?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'm going to hand you what I have marked as States Exhibit 89. And that's just a smaller version of States Exhibit 1, which is up on the board.
Uh-huh.
And I'm also going to hand you a pen. That would have been helpful. Can you first write your name
Sure.
on the bottom, and then can you mark on States Exhibit 9 where you entered the building and then where you went into the lounge that you've described? All right. Okay, and so you're in the lounge area at the table. What's the next thing that you remember?
The next thing I remember is a student, a fellow student yelling, "Call 911."
And did you know who that was, or could you see anyone?
She was in the culinary program. I know we weren't friends, but we knew each other by face, and I knew who she was.
And where was she when you heard that?
She was standing right outside of kitchen 1 and 2.
And do you see that green pointer kind of in front of you there? If you extend that, can you point on the big map where that was? About right here. And if you'll look on the TV also in front of you, is that same area?
Yeah, right. It'd be right where those mixers on the shelf are.
Okay. And when you heard her tell someone to call 911, what did you do?
I remember saying, "Are you serious? Do you really need someone to call 911?" And she said, "Yes." And so I picked up I think I had my phone in my hand already, and I dialed 911.
And when you made the call to 911, did you stay right there at that table, or where did you go?
No, I came to her to see what she needed, why she needed us to call 911. And I believe she said, before I believe she said, there's a body in here, there's somebody on the ground.
And where was she referring to?
Kitchen 1.
Okay. And did you then go into kitchen 1?
I think I stood right at the doorway.
Okay. And during the course of your call with 911, did you stay in one spot?
No. I remember dialing and it didn't connect. So I remember dialing it again. And while I was waiting for it to connect, I was trying to find Sadie Damon, our chef. And so I was going through the building, trying to find her.
And were you able to find her?
Yes, she was in the guest restrooms.
And can you point for us where those are?
Yep. There. Yep, right there.
All right. And during the rest of that call, did you move around or did you go back to one place?
After she came out, I said, "We need you in the kitchen," and I followed her and I stayed in that kitchen. I believe until the paramedics came. I may have stepped out again and back in, but I remember being in the room almost the whole time.
At this time, Your Honor, I'd like to play State's Exhibit 23. No. And this one's been offered already this morning.
911.
Hi, we are at Oregon Culinary Institute, and there is somebody collapsed. One of our kitchens.
Okay, just one moment. And what's the address there?
What's the address? 1701. 17 West? Southwest Madison.
1701 Southwest Madison?
No, 1717 Southwest Jefferson.
1717 Southwest Jefferson?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, and...
He's one of our chefs, and he's an older man.
All right, is he conscious right now?
No, he is not conscious.
Okay, is he breathing?
No, he is not breathing.
Okay. And is anyone doing CPR?
Yes.
Okay, someone's doing CPR right now?
Yep.
Do they need instructions?
Do you need instruction, or do you need to...
Are they doing compressions only?
She's doing compressions, and I can switch out too if you need to, because I'm CPR certified.
Okay. All right. And do you know the cause of this, or what happened? Did he just collapse?
No, we have no idea. Somebody just found him on the floor.
Okay. So I just want you to continue doing those CPR compressions until help gets there. If you guys need
until help gets here.
Yeah. If you need to,
I'm just talking to the gal who's doing it.
Perfect. And if she gets tired and someone needs to take over, go ahead and do that.
Okay.
Is there someone that could? Is there a side that the responders need to go to?
Yes, it's on the north side of the building. What is this? What street is this? Madison. It's on the Madison side.
Okay.
So yeah, go to Madison and
enter on the north side, on the Madison side?
Yep, on the Madison side of the building. It's the north side of the building.
Okay. And can you send somebody out there to show the responders where to go?
In the parking lot. Yep, there's a bunch of people in the parking lot.
Okay, perfect.
And I am too now. Yep.
Okay, and how old is he?
I don't know. I know that he's at least in his 60s or 70s,
okay.
70s, I think.
All right.
That might be a little bit too old, but he's an older gentleman.
And he's one of the chefs there, head chef?
Yes. Yep. No, he's just one of our instructors.
Okay. All right. Does he have any, heart issues that you know of?
I have no idea.
Okay.
He's not my instructor.
All right. And then can I get your first and last name?
My name's Katie Dooley.
And a phone number? All right. And I'm just going to stay on the line with you until
Stay on the line.
somebody gets there, okay?
Yep. Okay.
And someone else is putting in, the address is 17012 Southwest Jefferson.
I'm not sure. Keep going. Do you want me to do it? Okay. He's bleeding out of what? Okay. He's bleeding out of his chest.
Bleeding out of his chest? Okay.
Yeah.
Does he
just started bleeding.
Okay. Is someone still doing CPR?
Yes. No. Should she keep going? The ribs are broken. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Ma'am.
Okay. All right. Is someone still doing anything or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, she's still doing compressions.
Okay. All right.
Does she need to continue?
Whatever she feels comfortable doing.
Whatever you feel comfortable doing. Do you want me to turn out? Do you want me to take a turn?
They'll be there. They're coming really fast. They'll be there any second.
They're going to be here any second.
I know. You're doing a good job. I know. You're doing a good job, okay? Someone's on scene right now. Is there someone out there? Okay, I know.
Okay, they're coming.
Do you see them?
Fuck. No, we don't.
Okay, I know, Katie. You're doing a good job. I'm so sorry.
Oh, my God.
Do you see any of the responders?
No, but they're getting him, but he's
okay. I'm sorry. Okay. Do you see the responders?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. They're coming. They went to the front door.
They went to go get them? Okay, good.
Yeah.
I'm going to stay on the phone until you see them, okay? Is anyone doing compressions or you're...
No.
It's okay.
No,
I understand. It's okay.
Are they coming? Yeah. Okay, they're here.
Okay. All right. I'll let you go.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
It wasn't initially known what had caused Dan's collapse. Those at the school assumed it had been a heart attack or a stroke. Nothing else in the classroom had seemed out of place. Nothing looked ransacked. There wasn't any broken glass or open doors. And it was only when paramedics arrived that they were moving him and they saw blood that had pooled underneath his body. Paramedics looked for the source of the blood and were shocked to discover 2 bullet wounds. A further investigation of the room confirmed that when they found bullet fragments on the floor. The school was then locked down while the Oregon Police Department searched the building for the possibility of an active shooter or additional victims. Officers eventually cleared the building and it became clear that Dan Brophy had been the only victim, who was declared deceased at the scene. Through interviews, they also learned that Dan normally arrived around 7:30 a.m. to set up the classroom, but he appeared to have been there earlier that day. Dan had been making coffee for the students and filling water jugs to keep them hydrated in the summer heat when he'd been shot. Paramedics noted that the sink had still been running when they arrived. Dan was shot once in the back and then once in the chest. Though they couldn't determine exactly which had been first, investigators theorized that Dan had been at the sink, leaned over, filling the water jugs with his back facing the door. They believe that he had been shot first in the back, and he spun around, faced the shooter, and then was shot again. Once the crime scene was deemed safe, officers started interviewing all the students at the school and going into the first phase of a murder investigation, which included notifying the victim's next of kin, which in this case was Dan's wife, Nancy. The following is the interview taken by the lead detectives on the morning of Dan's death at the Culinary Institute.
Detective Posey, and we're here also with,
Okay, Detective, do you recognize this audio?
Yes, that's Detective Posey talking right now.
Okay, and is this the recording of that death notification with Miss Nancy Brophy
Yes.
on June 2nd, 2018?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I'll go ahead and play it.
I'm just going to do some introductions, so that it's all on the tape and everything. So I'm Detective Posey, and we're here also with Detective Merrill, and we're here with Nancy. And your last name, Nancy?
Brophy.
Okay. And today's date is June 2nd, 2018, and it's approximately, 10:47 a.m. So Nancy, I know that I think some people kind of notified you that something was going on.
Just what they heard on the news.
Oh, okay. So it's already been on the news.
KGW said that there was a shooting, there was one fatality, and that the police showed up at 8:30, or they called at 8:30. I don't know.
I see. Okay. So, Dan is your husband, is that correct?
Uh-huh.
And his name's Daniel.
C for Craig Brophy.
Oh, okay. And what time did he leave this morning from your guys' place? I'm assuming that he was at your house.
No, he was. He left, I'm going to say 7-ish. I mean, maybe 7:05, but somewhere in there. That's about the time he normally leaves.
Okay. Anything different this morning coming to work? Any kind of different?
We had a leak in our bathroom under the sink, and so we were dealing with that. But that was a different part.
Right. Were you guys up earlier this morning or anything?
He's up every every morning.
He's an early riser.
And he is, and he has his little list of things he does. You know, he walks the dogs, he feeds the chickens, he does that kind of stuff.
Okay. Where do you guys live at?
Beaverton.
Oh, okay.
We're in unincorporated Washington County.
Oh, okay. So you guys got a little bit of property or something?
About a half an acre.
Oh, neat. Okay. So he probably left at the latest maybe 7:05 this morning?
Yeah.
Okay. And usually how long does it take him to get here?
Well, on Saturdays there's no traffic. On most Saturdays, you know. So I would say 10 minutes from our house, tops.
Okay.
You know, I think it's like 5.5 miles.
Oh, okay.
So,
do you know, or are you familiar with kind of how he does things when he comes to the location here? Like, is there anything in particular that that you're familiar with as far as, you know, what you know that is kind of his schedule of things that he does when he shows up here at work?
No. What I know is he comes in and he talks on the cards. He has 2 cards he brings in on the weekends, and or maybe he brings them in on Friday and takes them home on Saturday, and it's stuff he canned and spices and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and it's in small enough quantities that if you're a starving student, you can buy, you know, a little patch of saffron rather than paying.
Yeah, right, exactly.
A lot of money.
Yeah, just what you need.
Right.
And when was he last here, besides this morning? When was the last time that he came in?
I would guess yesterday morning to set up the cart.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know if he came down for any other reason during the week. I mean, he kind of comes and goes on his own. I know where he's working when.
Errands,
yeah.
Right? Okay. But so he may have been here yesterday in the morning.
Yes, but it would have been early.
Okay.
It would have been really early.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. And is he typically the first person that opens up in the morning?
No, Yadu is.
Yadu?
Yadu, why?
On Saturdays?
Yeah.
Or on Sundays?
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, I assumed it was. I think Yadu gets here in the middle of the night. Because it seems to me like Yadu is always here.
Oh, okay. And that's the cleaning guy, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And you know who he is. You've met him before. Okay.
I know all these guys. I mean, this is the part you missed of the conversation. Dan's worked here for 12 years, maybe 13. Before that, he worked with the same group of guys over at Western. I mean, we've known these people for 25 years.
Right. You guys he's involved with the culinary kind of community, so to speak.
Right.
Is there, was there any kind of issues with Yadu or any kind of issues with anybody at the school?
You know how Dan is not hail-filled or well met. I mean, we had no communication issues. I'm not trying to make it sound that way, but he's not a chatter. You know, he has a level of bullshit that's pretty low, and he just does not have, he doesn't, we just, if we have a dinner party, he likes to cook, so he doesn't have to have that level of bullshit.
Oh, I see.
So, I mean, but if you get on a topic he cares about, yeah, he's got opinions, and he'll voice it. We did a culinary tour of Oaxaca. This must have been 2003. And we did this culinary tour, and we were with these same people for 13 days, and at the end of the 13 days, I don't notice he's quiet, but somebody said, I didn't think your husband ever spoke. And I thought, he talks all the time. But they didn't see it that way. And so here's the other thing. He doesn't harbor grudges. I mean, he truly doesn't harbor grudges. When he first went to work at Western Culinary, God, I'm going to have to tell you stories here. There was another chef that really disliked him, but the other chef was leaving, and they came around and said, well, he's leaving, and Dan threw him $5 for whatever they were collecting money. Right. And whoever was collecting it was really surprised. Said, I thought you guys didn't like each other. Dan said, he's just a guy with a different opinion than mine. And he just never, in 25 years of teaching, I have never heard him badmouth a student one time. Ever. And
so there's not any specific things that you know about that. Right. There's no like he was like, oh man, this person's really got it out for me, or none of that kind of.
And that wouldn't be how he thought anyway.
Okay.
Dan kind of is his own little world. God, that makes him sound incompetent. He's not. He's not.
No, I know. So I just want to let you know that we believe Dan we believe it's Dan that has been killed. Okay.
Yeah, I kind of got that when everybody gave me the sad sack look. Yeah.
I am sorry. It's our job to figure out what happened, and that's why we're talking to you.
Oh, sure.
Because you're part of the story, right? Of what took place, and so I just want to be straightforward and frank with you.
Good.
Is there anybody that you know of that wanted to do something to this to Dan? Everybody I've heard from so far is like, Dan's a nice guy.
He is a nice guy.
And students seem to like him and everything. So that's the question. It's like why would somebody do something?
Rouser. I mean, he is. He just. It took me 4.5 years to convince him to marry me. I mean,
he doesn't move real fast on things.
No, he is. But we had a great marriage.
Okay.
But the only people I know who have ever hated him was his ex-wife, and whose ex-wife doesn't hate the husband. Right. And I can't believe after 25 years she'd be motivated. Okay. So yeah, I mean, short of that,
all right.
We live a quiet life.
Okay. What's the name of the ex-wife?
Perla, and I'm not sure what name she's going by. It's her last name, Perla.
Oh, Perla is her last name. Okay. And what's her first name?
That is her first. I'm sorry, Perla, maybe Brophy, maybe Stillwater, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know what she's going by.
Gotcha. But
I can tell you this. Dan would have told me.
But that was like 25 years ago. Okay.
And we saw her 2 years ago when Nathaniel, his son, got married. Okay. And they didn't speak, but, nobody drew a knife either.
Right. Yeah, it was cordial. As far as
distant.
Yeah, okay. But that was the last time that you know of that.
That's the only time that he's seen her in 20 years, maybe. Okay. So I don't think that's an issue.
Okay. And kids?
That's Nathaniel.
And that's the only kid that he has through her?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Any issues there?
Oh, no. Okay. Oh, no, Nathaniel's great.
Did you guys have any?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Nathaniel's worked for me.
Okay.
No, Nathaniel's great. He's happily married to Kate. They have a 6-year-old child that Dan and I adore. And Kate's pregnant. We're all excited. So we're going to have a second grandchildren. I've got signs all over the house. Quit fooling around, Nathaniel. I want grandchildren myself. I don't have signs. I'm not that.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're just trying to figure out what, and that's why I'm asking
Sure.
some of these kind of questions.
Can you
and
tell me
stuff.
what happened, as far as you know?
He was shot.
With an AR-15?
No, I don't know what he was shot with.
Oh.
But he was shot with a gun. Why do you say AR-15?
Because school shootings are all
Oh, no.
AR-15s now.
It happened, as far as I know, and I would ask that you keep this between us. At some point when he showed up here this morning, and so
But they didn't call. Where was Shadu? Why didn't they call the police before then?
that's what that's information that we're trying to kind of sort all of this out. I don't know.
Where was the other instructor? He doesn't teach alone.
Yeah, I know. The other instructor showed up after and found him. So that's what we're trying to sort out.
He was alone.
And that's why I'm kind of asking a little bit about, what
Sure.
were some of his, typical things that he would do in the morning. Did you ever accompany him coming into in here?
A couple of weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 4, I was meeting a client in Washington, and they called me before I got there and said that I sell Medicare, and so it was somebody who needed help, but she wasn't feeling well, so they called and canceled. So I came back here and used the bathroom. But other than that, I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention to what are you doing.
Was he here by himself or with somebody?
I thought Yadu was here, but maybe not.
Was that a Saturday or a Sunday? Okay. All right. Got any questions?
Yeah. You just to make sure I got that last point, you said you came here just like a couple weeks ago just to use the restroom when your meeting was canceled?
Yeah, maybe 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
And I came and I went to the bathroom and I left. It wasn't that exciting. It's just faster than going to McDonald's.
Gotcha. So you didn't see
didn't
where
see
Dan was or what he was up to? Did you say hi to him or anything that time?
I said he opened the door for me.
Okay.
So the doors would be locked.
Okay.
The doors would all be locked. How did somebody else come in?
That's what we're working on. So I was going to ask you, does Dan own any kind of guns at all, or does he carry a gun at all for any reason? For protection or anything?
You're going to be so embarrassed. I'm kind of embarrassed. After the Marjorie Douglas Stoneman shooting in February.
After which one?
The one in February in Florida.
In Florida.
We talked about it, and I have kind of surveyed people, and everybody we know owns a gun except us. And I said, maybe we ought to buy a gun. And he said, okay. And so there was a gun show, and I went down and bought a gun. But here's the weird thing. When I got it home, I'm going to turn this off if you don't care.
Thank you.
When I got it home, I realized
I don't know your home address.
Oh, hush.
Tap your name if you'd like to add it.
But I apparently skill level isn't me.
Oh, it's okay, too. It's time.
Okay, so I bought this gun. I got it home. We looked at it, and neither one of us wanted it. And so it's still on my closet shelf, and it still has that little plastic band around the shooter thing.
Yeah.
The shooter thing. There's a name for this.
Yeah.
And because we've never even bought bullets for it, you know.
Okay.
So yeah,
Is
we
it
have
a pistol or is it a
It's
a
a
rifle?
Glock,
Okay.
and
It's a handgun.
it's a handgun. Yeah. It's not an AR-15.
It's not a rifle.
No.
It's a small gun.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it's at home.
So it sits at home. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't even know how to get rid of it because Oregon has a law against, I'm not a gun dealer, so I can't sell it, you know? So that was what we were talking about. What did we do to get rid of
I
it?
see.
But
So why did you guys decide against having it? Because you just didn't, when you looked at it, it didn't...
it was heavy. Do you know
It's
how,
kinda
well, of course, you know
scary.
how heavy a gun is.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no,
it
it's
was
okay.
heavy and it felt terrible handling it. It was like, it was just
wasn't something you guys did?
no.
Yeah.
And real frankly, I couldn't imagine ever needing it. I mean, you kind of lived through 67 years and you think, well, I'm kind of there, you know.
But Dan never took it out or brought it with him to school or anything. It's locked up at home still. As far as
I'm sure it is.
And would you guys keep it in like a box that you get? Did you guys get a gun box with it?
It came with a case.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think it's still the plastic bag we bought it in.
And what caliber is it? Do you know, like you know how they have a 40 millimeter, 9 millimeter, 40 or 45
9
caliber?
sounds right. 9
Maybe
sounds
a
right.
9? Okay.
And it's ugly.
Yeah. Is it all black?
Yeah.
Okay. And so when you guys got that back in February after the school shooting in Florida, was Dan a little? You said you got that because you're talking that maybe that's something for safety for Dan here at the school, or just
no. We just felt like we were. Honest to God, I work with a bunch of writers. I'm a writer too, and I work with all these writers, and everybody has a gun. Even my mother-in-law has a stun thing, and I'm thinking, we're the only people in the world who don't have a gun. and I started kind of doing a survey, and it started around Thanksgiving because the family's all together, and everybody has guns but us. And I'm thinking, well, maybe we're wrong, but we got it and we weren't wrong, you know.
Okay.
As far as Dan's phone,
yes.
Does he? Do you know what his password is?
Yes.
Okay. Can we have that?
987-987-7600.
And what kind of phone does he have?
It's the same. It's exactly like mine.
Okay. All right.
Which kind's yours? Apple, iPhone,
6.
iPhone 6.
Okay.
So you guys have the same account together?
Yes.
And what's his phone number?
503-701-5427. My number's very similar. I have to think about it.
Okay. Did he send you any text messages or?
I texted
calls?
him, and that was part of the reason why
When did you text him?
After Maxine called me.
Oh, okay.
Maxine called me, and I texted him, and when I didn't get a response, everything in me said, this isn't right. This isn't right. And so I came down.
And who's Maxine?
Maxine is a teacher who teaches here on Sundays. Maxine Borcherdine.
Okay.
And I think she teaches a wine class.
Oh, okay. What did your husband usually teach?
God, he's taught for 25 years.
I mean, was there any particular?
He taught T2. T2.
Oh, okay.
So the segments are broken into 4 T's. Mm-hmm. And the first one is kind of get to know your knives, learn stuff. His was on basic cooking. They had live fire, which was, you're in a restaurant, essentially, and you have to fire 5 entrees within a certain amount of time, and live fire was kind of the nightmare day.
Right, because there's a lot of people trying to do stuff, and right.
But he's a fun instructor. I mean, he did things like he would take the class to the course. He would take his class to the coast for a negative tide, and he would do a negative intertidal. He took a mushroom hunting. They went to the salt place down on the coast. He was a fun guy, and he was really nice. He really didn't dislike anyone.
What was his schedule for the current session that he was teaching? My understanding is working Saturdays and Sundays.
Yes.
Okay. What was he do? Does he do anything in the rest of the week?
We have a friend, Tanya Medlin, and she is about a year and a half ago. She's at Avamere Rehab, and she was desperate for a weekend cook at that point. And Dan said, "I'll come in and help out," and he just continued to be on the schedule ever since. And so, usually 2 days a week, but for some reason right now he's working a little more there.
Oh, okay.
And so, and sometimes it's morning, sometimes it's evening. I've got a schedule written out.
Oh, okay.
So,
at some point, maybe you could get that to me.
sure,
On my business card there is my email address.
perfect. I'll send it
If
to
you
you.
can email that
Yeah.
scheduled to me just so I have
It's basically Thursday nights, Friday nights, but there's a couple of random days. And so he goes in at 2 and he's off by 7.
Okay. So it's short little.
Yeah.
He's teaching a class and
No, he's truly cooking.
Oh, he's cooking. Oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
Gotcha.
And I think he enjoys it because he doesn't, for me, he gets to cook again.
And where was that place that he was cooking at?
It's on Allen Boulevard at Lombard.
Okay. And what's the name of it?
Lombard. It's Avamere Rehab.
Avamere Rehab. Okay.
And,
It's a restaurant.
it's a rehab
Yeah.
facility.
Oh, it's a rehab facility.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
And then what's it, Admo Beer? Is that what you said?
Avamere. Avamer.
Okay. Admo
Okay.
Do you want Tanya's phone number?
Sure.
Yeah.
What's your phone number first?
503-701-5612.
Thank you. It's Tanya Medlin.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the reason why I hesitated there is I've known her since she was Tanya Glowa, and sometimes I have to stop and think my friends all changed their names at one point or another in their lives.
Okay. I texted that info to Aaron, but he hasn't gotten back to me. But
Let's just answer this and move along. Okay. Tanya. Contacts. Tanya. Here, come on, Nancy, you can do this. Here we go. 503-1384.
thank you. Do you have a second if I ask a question?
No, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't know if you were still on.
No.
Okay. Just another question. What kind of vehicles do you guys drive? You guys each have your own vehicles?
He
or-
has a white truck that's out here,
Okay.
and it's a Toyota 2010 pickup. It's a Tacoma,
Oh, okay.
and I have a Toyota van.
Like a minivan?
No, yeah,
Right,
yeah.
Okay.
A Sienna,
A Sienna, okay. What color is that?
gray.
Okay. And what year is that one? Roughly?
2007.
Got it.
They're both paid for, and there's a point where you'd rather drive an older car that's paid for than
That's the way I would do
payments.
it. Yep. And I was going to ask you, when you said Dan woke up, he's an early riser, has his routine, walks the dog, feeds the chickens. So this morning, did you wake up at the same time or after him, or how'd that go?
I didn't sleep well, and I don't
Okay.
know why I didn't sleep well, but I think that I'm to that age. So I woke up when he came up for a shower. So that would have been 6:50, 6:45.
And you said because he was getting a shower, that's when you woke up? Okay.
And he used to shower downstairs, but last week you'll see stitches on his hand. See it? I don't know which hand. Because last week in the shower, our shower door shutters. He's not having a good week. Oh, that sounded good.
He got stitches in his hand from the shower door?
It's glass, and it just
okay.
shattered into 9 million little pieces.
Really? Oh, no.
And
Which hand was that?
I think it was his right hand.
So right hand should have
I went
stitches?
to the emergency room with him.
Okay.
No, it was his left hand. It was his left.
Oh.
You'll see.
You've been painting?
Okay. So yesterday we went to a rummage sale, and I found this really cute little toy thing, and so I put primer on it, and I thought I'd paint it for my granddaughter.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, that was really observant of you.
I just know when you talk about stitches on your hand, I thought you were going to show me like which hand. So you think it was his right hand, though? Did he have
I think it was
stitches?
his left hand.
Or left? Do you know how many he got?
3, I think.
Okay, so not too bad. And then, so after he got his shower this morning, though,
Yeah,
you
he
said he woke
managed
up.
to. He didn't need a spotter.
Okay. So, and then when did you see him after that? Did you have breakfast with him? You know, I mean, what happened after that?
I didn't get out of bed.
Oh, you just kind of woke up and you were alert in bed.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we have our bedroom is an attic. Was an attic, and so the bathroom's right here, and so
Okay.
you know, he got dressed and left.
Did he say? Did you guys talk before he left or anything like that?
About the water leak.
Oh.
And I discovered it yesterday when I was cleaning out from under the sink, and so he asked me what all the wet cloths were in the sink, and that was when I remembered it. And so he went down to get something to put under the sink, so if it was still leaking, that it wasn't, it wouldn't ruin it.
Okay. And so then you think he left like around 7 to 10, maybe something like that?
7:05, 7:10, yeah.
7:10. Okay. And then the next thing you know after that is when did you hear something?
Maxine called me.
Is that the text you guys were talking? I think I missed that. Is why. Okay.
Okay, so Maxine called me. Come on, Nancy. Okay. So, I guess either this is the first time or the last time, but it was all right within a 10-minute period, so 10:09.
And you guys talked on the phone?
She said, what do you know about what's going on at OCI? And I said, I don't know anything. What's going on? And she said, well, it's on the news. And I said, okay. And she told me what she had heard. And she works for Potluck in the Park. So Potluck in the Park had called her. And she was on her way down here at that point, but didn't come because to set up her class for tomorrow.
So Potluck in the Park, is that around here? Or?
Okay, so this is the corner up here. This is OCI. This is Potluck in the Park. It's
like
directly diagonal. Mm-hmm.
So they called her to ask her to tell her about this incident?
Sure. Gossip spreads quickly.
Maxine, does she work here?
Borcherding?
Okay, do we know her name yet? Or
I don't know if I have her name yet.
Maxine.
BORSCH, I think. ERDINE.
Okay. And then do you have her number handy?
Of course.
Okay.
My whole life is on this phone. Oops, stop. Okay, I gotta go back because I'm. Oh man. Come on, Nancy, think.
Okay, take your time.
Okay, her phone number is 503-46.
She works right over there. You think she's working over there right now?
Oh, no.
Oh.
She's at home.
Oh, okay. Okay.
She used to work with them all the time, and I've heard a rumor, but she hadn't confirmed it with me that she wasn't with them anymore. So I think, it's a donation. It's a volunteer thing, and like everything else in the world, it's political.
Yeah. Darren, would you like me to do one of these for the pickup truck?
Oh, yeah, let's do that.
Make sure we do that. You want
Sure, I'll just do it. So, obviously, what this is just a search by consent.
Oh,
and
sure.
we're just asking for your permission to be able to search Dan's truck and go through that.
And clean up the trash.
Well, I'm not going to do that.
You might want to just put that on there as well.
Yeah.
Just to cover it.
So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put that down here as far as the info on the and the phone too. Correct.
I don't have a key with me, but he's got a key, obviously. But I can get you an extra key if you need it.
Okay.
I know this is selfish, but what am I going to do without him? How am I going to get through?
It's not selfish. No, don't you worry.
I should be worried about him, and all I could think about is, oh my God.
Yeah, take one step at a time, okay?
I know. I'm sorry.
Just take it slow. And you know, there's not a lot of things you can do right now. Your mind's going a million miles per hour. You want to do all these things, but you just got to take a deep breath. You got family on the way, correct?
And my father-in-law's coming.
Okay. And you need to seek support from your loved ones right now, okay? And just take it slow, okay? You need to be with your loved ones and your family right now. As soon as we get done here, we have a person outside that works with tips for traumatic incidents that can help you with any resources to see if you need anything they can assist you with, okay? You're going to have our business cards. We gave you those. And if we can help you in any way, we're going to be working real hard on this right now. You know that. But if you need anything,
but
you can call
here's
us.
the terrible thing. Okay? Even if you find who shot him, he's not going to bring him back. And I want him back. That's the part I want. I don't care about who shot him. I just want him back. I don't want him dead.
No, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
So, just try to slow down a little bit and try to breathe, and we'll get through this part, and you can be with your family, okay? Thank you for your patience, too.
Oh, no, it's not like I was doing anything else.
Well, I know.
Probably the wrong thing. So.
No, this has got to be extremely difficult. I have no idea what you went through.
Do you need a photo of him?
I don't think so.
I wouldn't mind seeing one. Yeah, do you have one we can look at?
He's so cute. On his phone, when you flip it over, there's a picture of him with the rooster. That's his favorite picture.
Oh, yeah?
Do I have a photo here? Sure. Okay.
Yeah, I'll go get that for you.
I thought I did.
No,
do I need to sign?
Oh, yeah, just sign there that it's okay for us to search the vehicle.
Oh, here he is. So this is when we were in Sook Harbor House in Victoria. And
wow, that is quite the bolo tie.
yeah, well, yes. He's got a whole collection.
Does he?
Uh-huh.
Is that, it's real turquoise, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's quite a lot.
Uh-huh. I think he got that when we were in Santa Fe on vacation. And this was Victoria.
Oh, uh-huh. So I'm just putting the date and the time that you signed.
Okay.
But you got 11:20.
Hey, did you get my text? Okay. Okay, what's got the password? The phone. Okay, all right. It's an iPhone 6. The phone number I gave you with a passcode number. Okay. What do you mean? Oh, okay, gotcha. All right. So we can do what we need to with it first, and then you can. Okay, I got you. Okay. Yep. Okay. All right, I gotta run. I'll talk to you. Bye.
All right. I just put the info in there. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Appreciate that. And I don't know if we'll need the key at this point in time. I might be handy to get that at some point.
The extra key?
I don't have it with me, but I can get it.
I just don't know if, I don't know where the other set of keys are at. So, I mean, if
there'd be in a pocket or nothing.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah. Okay. So we talked about a lot of stuff, but is there anything that we didn't ask you that you think's important we should know about? Anything he might have mentioned in just passing about somebody hanging out by the plate. You know what I mean? Just some weird, there's a lot of transients around here. I'm going to be very honest with you. I think you know that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Anything he talked about?
I used to be the caterer for Temple Beth Israel, and we used
Did you?
to say it had a high mutant factor in that neighborhood. And this neighborhood was not exempt.
Yeah.
No, he didn't say anything to me. And when I tell you he kind of operated in the tunnels, he really did. You know.
Hey, what about coffee? Would he come and get his morning coffee anywhere?
Tea? No, here.
Tea?
No.
Tea.
Okay. Okay, here's his routine. I didn't even think about this till you just said that. Somewhere in there you're going to find a big plastic glass that is filled with tea, loose tea. And so he would have that in the morning, and then he'd take it to work with him. Because
What does it look like, the one that he usually takes?
it's sometimes blue and yellow, or I think blue or yellow.
Okay.
And it's a huge glass.
Okay.
And he drinks that all morning long. And it's his specialty. It's that lapsang susang.
Does he put any milk or anything in it? No. Just
Sugar. And actually Splenda, probably. Yeah.
Does he carry culinary equipment, like his
Knives?
own knives or anything?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't. I mean, he carries stuff all the time, but it's instructor stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he typically leaves his instructor stuff here at the place. He wouldn't necessarily have his own
He would
set.
have a red book bag type of thing with him, and the red book bag would be his.
Okay, so red book bag, that would be his, just stuff that he's got for the day or whatever.
Sure, I have no idea, but I'm sure
that's
it's all.
what he uses usually.
Yeah.
He doesn't have like a briefcase or some other kind of bag. It's a red book bag.
He is so low key.
No, that's fine. No, I know, but we just want to be able to
identify what he would have had.
what he's got as far as personal effects in there.
What about with his credit cards, wallet, cash? What kind of wallet would it look like?
It's a brown leather wallet, and that would have driver's license, a couple of credit cards, probably, his Kaiser card.
You guys have Kaiser insurance?
He has Kaiser.
Oh, okay.
I have Medicare, and he's turning 64 this month, so he's not old enough yet for Medicare.
I see.
But he has Kaiser through work, employee benefits.
What, do you remember what credit cards? Did you have an ATM card or anything?
He's got a Wells Fargo card and a Bank of America card. And the Bank of America card is on his business account, so it probably says Odonata Foods. And the Wells Fargo card is on his personal account, and it probably says Daniel C. Brophy.
And what was the business again called?
Odonata. Odanta.
A-N-T-A.
That isn't right.
Okay.
Odanata. Odonata.
Odonata, and then what else?
Odonata, what is it called? Odonata Business Consulting. I think it's called Odonata Business Consulting.
Okay.
Would he ever carry any cash on his person?
Yes.
How much usually?
Well,
Or how much this morning?
I don't know, because he would have taken money out of the pig. When you see the carts, there's a pig. It's an honor system thing, and so he would have taken the money out of the pig.
Oh, okay.
And he would come down and check it every
so often.
Every so often, so that
So he has a cart that basically he sells some basic spices and things that people kind of need and whatnot. And on that cart, there's a little pig that people put the money in for buying whatever spices or whatever items that they buy off of his cart.
Right.
It's something that sits inside the building.
It's back in the schoolroom, in the kitchen. There's a...
Yeah.
You've been back there?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah, so there's two carts. One is a wooden cart, and one is a blue plastic cart.
Okay.
And they're both his.
Okay. And how much money? I mean, I know you wouldn't know, but I mean, I'm
he was so excited one time because he got $80.
Oh,
so,
okay.
you know, I would say it goes 0 to 40 would be more realistic.
Okay. Gotcha.
Because, you know, look, $80,
Right.
is, let's pay off the house.
What did the pig look like? Is it like a little ceramic piggy bank type thing?
Yeah,
Jimmy?
this big.
What color?
I think orange. No,
Okay.
wait, maybe, I don't know, maybe pink. Maybe purple? Purple, maybe? I don't know, apparently.
And just when you say this big, you're saying basically like a couple of fist size.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're just doing that because it's recorded. So.
Oh, yeah.
That's all right.
This big. Get that.
What about jewelry? Do you have any expensive rings or necklaces or watches or anything like that?
Oh, he would have worn a watch, but no rings. But, you can't really wear a ring and be a chef. And if you say the students can't wear one, then you can't wear one, But he would have worn a watch, and he wasn't a necklace kind of guy.
Okay. But he does have bolo ties.
Yes, he does.
Quite a collection.
Yes, he does.
Bolo ties.
Oh, okay.
I showed pictures.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Anything else you think of?
Not at the moment. I think we've gotten this.
Thank you
the
all.
schedule
I'm
of
much
things.
calmer now. Thank you. And I think it was because you all were so calm.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I am
we are.
too.
Sorry.
And
I don't even know how my life is going to go.
And just take one step at a time. That's the main thing. One day at a time, one step at a time. We're gonna have Nicole come and talk with you. She's the TIPS volunteer person, and they're here to just kind of help you out. And like my partner said, they have some resources, which check into those things. Obviously, right? It's gonna typically, the next couple of days, it's gonna be hectic. And here's the other thing: is given the circumstances, the news media is going to be involved in this. And so, and this is just for you. You can talk to them if you want to. You don't have to. That's up to you. I'm just kind of letting you know that because of that situation, right? They're going to be involved with what's going on, and there's going to be a lot of stuff on the television. Just so you know. So I just kind of preparing you because I want you to at least understand that it's going to get. There's going to be and who knows what kind of information is going to get put out there. Don't let that trouble you. First of all, we do go through all of that stuff, and we're it's our job to work through what's actually going on with what happened. Of course, if you know something or you find out something and you're concerned that maybe we don't know about it, always feel free to give me a call. If I don't pick up the phone, you can leave me a message and I will get back with you. But feel free to do that because we work for you. We are working for you. And our goal here is obviously to find out what happened. Our goal is also, as police officers, is to hold accountable whoever did this. That's our job. And so, we try very hard to work for you because this is your loved one. This is the person that cared for you and helped you. And so I know that nothing that we do will bring him back, and we're very sorry about that. But at the same respect, we don't want this to happen to somebody else, right? No. And have some other family go through this difficulty. And so that's what we're here about, is justice for Dan and for you. And so we want to find out, and our job is to find out what happened. At some point, we may know all of what happened. We may not ever know completely what happened. That sometimes happens. But I just preparing you so that you understand that sometimes this is a long process that takes time to sort out what happened, right? Everybody's life connects with different people in different situations. You know, even though you're married to someone, right? I mean, you know, he has contacts with people and stuff, and like you said, he's sometimes quiet about things, and maybe he didn't share something that was going on with some other situation, right? So I will do my best to explain things to you when I know them, and I can explain things to you. There's certain things that I will hold onto for a while, just because, given that we're conducting an investigation, right? There's certain things that we need to keep to ourselves, so that we protect the investigation, so that we can, you know, make sure that, like, when we talk to somebody else, they, you know, we're getting the information that they actually know, not something that got leaked out. You know what I mean? We want to try to keep all of that as secure as possible, so that we find out the truth. That's what it's about. We're not keeping secrets. We're just holding on to the information. So I just want you to understand. Yeah. Sometimes I can answer some questions. Sometimes I may not be able to, but eventually we will do the best we can to find out exactly what took place, so that you understand, and you know, you know it, right? And what you do with it is up to you. You don't have to share that with anybody, but just be aware that, you know, news media, you know, they have a job.
I know they do, but I don't want to share my grief with them.
Yeah, exactly. And most people don't. But just be aware that, you know, given the nature of what's taken place, that's something that, you know, is out there going on. And, you know, sometimes for some, you know, sometimes it's easier to not watch the news, you know. Just be aware. You know how best you deal with that stuff. But I just kind of want to give you the heads up.
You know, I'm usually happier.
Hang on a second, I'm in an interview. Let me call you right back.
Anyway,
okay.
But I just wanted to let you know.
And I'm following that. You know, I write romantic suspense, and so in one of the stories, the girl who knew too much told the wrong guy. So because you're an author, and you can make that happen.
Right. Exactly.
So here's the question I'm just realizing: where is he now?
He's in the building.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So he has to stay till the medical examiner. Okay.
This is what's going to happen.
Okay.
We're going to do a lot of pictures. We're going to do search for evidence inside the building, in his truck. We're going to, you know, our process, it takes a long time. So you know, there's a lot of things that we're going to do. We're going to take measurements, talk to all of the students and stuff that are, you know, involved, you know, with being here, you know, how, you know, all of that. So all of that's going to take a long time. And eventually, once we get done with pictures and pertinent evidence around where he was at, the medical examiner will take him, and then he'll get transported to the Oregon medical examiner's office, which is in Clackamas, and then they will perform an autopsy, so that we can understand, you know, any of the other dynamics with regards to, you know, what happened and how it happened. So that's kind of what's going to happen at this point in time. I mean, that's the general
assume eventually
function.
They release the body.
Yes,
so
yes, and they will contact you about
they
that.
Will contact
yes,
me. Okay.
We will give them your name and information, so that they can do that, and they will let you know all of that information when that takes place.
Okay.
That pretty much cover that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, an actual deputy medical examiner comes out here and assists us with the investigation. And like my partner said, they ultimately, you know, by state law, take possession of Daniel after we're done with the evidence collection and everything we can do to try to figure this out, like Darren said. So, but again, this is one step at a
Yeah,
time.
one
don't,
step
don't,
at a
don't,
time.
don't,
Totally.
you know, we're going to be doing our jobs, so you don't need to,
I know.
Yeah.
to overwhelm yourself too much, but you have our numbers. If you think of something, you can call us.
I will.
Leave us a message and we'll call you right back as soon as we can.
Okay. I just can't imagine who would want to kill him. You know, he wasn't that kind of guy. You know, I mean, he wasn't the kind of guy who got involved in anything. I mean, like that. You know, I've never even known him to have a confrontation with anybody.
Okay. Was he bringing anything to work today specifically that you knew about? Okay.
And I wouldn't know that.
Okay.
You know, Dan is kind of, he has
He's doing
piles
his
of
thing.
He has piles of stuff he brings in, piles of stuff he brings home. I mean, I was at home this morning and I discovered all this food in the den, and I looked at it and I knew it was chicken food, but tell me why we need it in our den. But, you know, he's just that kind of guy, you know, and he's pretty independent, and he's a wonderful guy. He really is a wonderful guy. Oh, man.
Okay. Should we just, yeah, we're
Okay, I'll turn that off.
So we're going to stop
11:39. Does that sound right?
11:39, yep.
11:39. Quarter off.
The crime scene gave little indication of what had happened or why. Robbery had made the most sense, but Dan's keys were located in the room, his wallet was on him, and he also had a small bag of cash that he used for a little snack box he had for the students. Students could buy little treats or snacks off of Dan, and he would collect the money or paper IOUs. It was a little something extra he did for the students. The second route of the investigation was that maybe a disgruntled student or person may have wanted to hurt Dan, but when investigators spoke to those around him, nearly everyone said the same thing. Dan was a kind and dedicated teacher. He taught many students in his career and several different generations of chefs in the Portland area, which included the president of the OCI, who had worked under Dan decades earlier. Many people stated that Dan would have given the shirt off of his back to someone who needed it and used his skills to help others in the community. He volunteered at a soup kitchen, he repurposed unused ingredients from the culinary program to ensure nothing was wasted. Dan was passionate about teaching sustainability in the food industry and really talked the talk and walked the walk. This was a person who virtually had no enemies. He would also keep in contact with students and follow their careers. He would help students find jobs and call in personal favors to help out wherever he could. But based on the evidence, it had seemed like the attack had been targeted. He'd been the only victim. It happened at a time when it was known he was usually alone. Detectives could not find a single individual who held a grudge or a bad feeling towards him. In general, Dan Brophy seemed very well loved within the community. The third avenue for investigators to look at was to look closer into Dan and Nancy's marriage. Though it is impossible to predict how someone will react to the devastating news of the murder of a loved one, Nancy's reaction has raised eyebrows. Had this woman, who was sitting in front of them, just killed their husband in cold blood? After the first interview with detectives, Nancy gets a police escort back to her home. This also gives detectives an opportunity to retrieve the gun that Nancy said was in her closet. The initial thought was that Dan may have had it in his possession when he was murdered, and perhaps it had been stolen or used against him. But it was in the closet, just as Nancy had said. They took photos of it and snapped a few pictures of her vehicle, a gray minivan. Once a death notification is completed by detectives, they begin investigating the area surrounding the Culinary Institute, and one of the first things they did was pull all the security footage from the surrounding areas, retracing Dan's steps from when he arrived until when his body was found.
Detective Broughton and Detective Beniga were at the Brophy home. Detective Merrill and Detective Posey were searching the area around the Oregon Culinary Institute for surveillance video. They went across the street to Bellagio's Pizza, roughly located around this area, kind of across from the Oregon Culinary Institute. And it had a camera angle that pointed north. As they watched that video, they recognized a minivan that they thought was visually consistent with Nancy Brophy's minivan, because they had just seen her with it downtown minutes prior. As they continued watching this video, they realized that this van actually passes, heading this direction, heading westbound, 2 separate times that morning. First at 7:08, and the second, 7:28. Now, detectives knew that the next instructor had arrived at about 7:35 at the Culinary Institute. And detectives knew that Dan had disabled the alarm at 7:22 and 30 seconds. So now they had a window of opportunity for someone to kill Dan. They had about a 13-minute window, and as they're watching this video, they realize that it appears that Nancy Brophy is leaving the area of the Culinary Institute and heading out of town at 7:28, right in the middle of their window. After seeing that, Detective Merrill contacted Detective Beniga, who was still out at Miss Brophy's home. Detective Merrill requested that Detective Beniga take a photograph of the minivan and text it to him. Detective Beniga took several shots of the minivan on different angles. And when Miss Brophy saw that Detective Beniga was doing that, she immediately questioned him as to why he would need photographs of her van, because she wasn't at the Culinary Institute that morning. So what's the need? Detective Beniga nonetheless took the photographs and sent them on to Detective Merrill. Detective Merrill then compared that still shot on the left that Detective Beniga had taken. You can see him kind of in the reflection. What Detective Merrill noticed immediately was there's this large gouge in the picture that Detective Beniga sent, compared to the photograph or the still shot that he's looking at in Bellagio's video. Detective Merrill believes there's a visually consistent mark in that minivan. Now Detective Merrill believed that this was in fact the minivan that Nancy Brophy was driving around that morning, and is the same minivan that he's seeing in the video. However, that was a direct contradiction to what Nancy Brophy just told them less than an hour prior during the death notification, when she was at home, and as you heard, further elaborated on the conversations and interactions that she had with Dan Brophy that morning.
As they began collecting more footage from traffic cams and from security footage from businesses, they began to piece together more sightings of Dan's truck, but also a gray minivan, one that looked suspiciously like Nancy's. But that didn't go against what she'd told law enforcement that morning. She said that she'd been at home during the time that Dan had been killed. Cell phone records also confirmed, making detectives suspicious that Nancy was lying. Detectives noted that there was something odd about the gun that Nancy had surrendered to them. They noticed that the gun's slide was out of battery, meaning that the slide was not locked into position, therefore not safe nor stored correctly. Nancy claimed that the weapon had never been fired, nor had she handled it since she purchased it from the gun show. Detectives went back to the retailer of the gun, who assured them that they never would have let a gun leave their stall out of battery, leading detectives to believe that the gun had been taken apart and put back together by someone with limited knowledge about firearms. Officers compared the gun to the shell casings found at the crime scene and noted that they didn't match. But still, detectives were missing a key element: motive. Why did a woman nearing retirement kill her husband after decades of marriage? Dan and Nancy had met in the 90s. Nancy was making a career change and attended a culinary arts program just to kill some time. It was there that she met Dan Brophy, a new divorcee. They were friends for many years before they began dating, and it seemed from the outside to be an idyllic marriage. The couple regularly took vacations abroad, they had similar interests and passions, and they routinely entertained guests where Dan would create impressive spreads. Dan was often described as reserved, quiet, and content with his own company. He foraged and had many gardening experiments on the property he shared with Nancy. He raised chickens and was devoted to their care. He had a dry sense of humor and a get-it-done attitude towards work, his garden, and life. He was always up to something. No one ever knew him to slow down. Retirement had never seemed an option for Dan. Dan had a son from his first marriage, who was a teenager when the divorce occurred. When Dan remarried, they began to cultivate a strong bond. His son also got to know Nancy and for a brief time even worked for her when she owned a catering company. When his son had kids of his own, Nancy and Dan would watch them and were doting grandparents. After all the time he had spent with his father and with Nancy, his son could only count a handful of times when he saw the couple argue. But he said he wouldn't even call it a fight, he just described it as tension. That was a common perception from those who knew Dan and Nancy well. Everyone said they never argued or fought. Maybe they had a disagreement, but they would always apologize and hug it out. They seemed to have a very healthy, loving relationship and excellent conflict resolution skills. What people didn't know was that the couple seemed to be really struggling financially, and it started about 2014. Nancy had sold her catering company at a loss, and it was then that she wanted to focus on writing. She wrote suspense romance novels and penned 14 in total, all of which she self-published. None of them came to much success, and certainly weren't paying back the thousands of dollars that Nancy spent to invest in herself. Writers' retreats, classes, conventions, marketing, among the many other expenses it takes to put out novels. In the marriage, Nancy was definitely the bigger spender of the two. While Dan occasionally purchased larger ticket items, he didn't bleed money the way Nancy did. If Dan didn't cook, Nancy would eat out. Nancy boasted that in her 25-year marriage, she never cooked a single meal. We see from her bank statements that Nancy went to Starbucks daily, often multiple times daily. Nancy hired housekeepers to come in and clean her areas of the house. Her bank statement showed just a constant outpouring of cash that oftentimes wasn't there. Her bank statements showed that she had no concern with spending. Even when they were absolutely strapped for cash, Nancy always spent what she wanted, even if that meant a mortgage payment went unpaid. Significantly more money was going out than coming in, as we see. Dan's teaching salary wasn't enough to cover their mortgage, let alone all the other house expenditures. When Nancy sold the business, they were left with tens of thousands of dollars in debt. They refinanced their home several times, and financial audits of their bank accounts showed that despite their financial troubles, they never changed their spending habits, still taking vacations, maxing out credit cards, refinancing their mortgage to catch up, and then doing it all over again. And when they couldn't pull from their mortgage, they began to dip into Dan's retirement money. Nancy eventually did go back to work as an insurance broker. First, she sold life insurance, but then later switched to Medicaid, where she worked off of commissions. The only problem with this line of work is that commissions were only paid out sporadically, oftentimes annually, which left the Brophies with a cash flow issue. It was also around this time when Nancy started taking out numerous policies for herself and Dan to get commissions. And these policies had monthly payments, and at one point the Brophies were paying nearly $2,000 per month in various life and medical insurance policies. According to Nancy, the couple decided that they were going to subdivide the property and sell it, downsize to something smaller and less expensive. They spent almost a year preparing the property for sale, but it hadn't been a welcome change for Dan according to those who knew him. He was also working a second job in the evenings at a retirement home in order to bring in a second income into the household. In the months before Dan's murder, people noticed that he seemed depressed, tired, and lacked his get-up-and-go attitude. He never talked about what was bothering him, but it isn't far reach to just say he was working all the time, not only at Avamere, the retirement home, or at the school as a teacher. He also did other stuff on the side, and he was just probably burnt out from just working day in and day out. And then when he came home and had time off, Nancy wanted him to pack and get rid of the house that he loved and the garden he cherished. And he just had so much going on, and it wouldn't be a stretch of the imagination to say that he might have been a little depressed about all of this change and upheaval, which many noted he was not good with. And it was just seemed to be a difficult time for Dan. It wasn't just a move for Dan, this would be a whole lifestyle change, and one he wasn't keen to make. Nancy, on the other hand, was ecstatic. She hated the chickens and the mess that surrounded Dan. She described him as a collector of things and often made comments about how cluttered her home was with Dan's projects. Dan didn't like throwing things away and often brought things home from school to repair or repurpose. Dan had a hard time parting with these things, making the process of getting the home ready for sale slow. After Dan's death, though, Nancy made quick work of gutting the home and putting the house on the market. Nancy stated at trial that she and Dan would have been ready to put the house on the market in the fall, but after his death, Nancy, with the help of 35 friends and family members, sorted, packed, cleaned, repaired, and it had taken weeks for them to get this house ready for market. Nancy admitted that she and Dan were making slow headway on the house, saying that before he had died, what they'd finished was clearing out a bathroom. It was also discovered through those financial audits that in total, Dan had numerous life insurance policies taken out on his behalf, totaling around $1.5 million. Policies that Nancy almost immediately started to attempt to cash in. A part of that $1.5 million cash out was going to be from the workers' comp benefit because Dan had died at work. Had Dan not died at work, Nancy wouldn't be receiving a majority of this windfall. Nancy's financial troubles were about to be completely solved. 4 days after Dan's murder, the lead detective got a call from Nancy with a request he had never heard before.
But I think I need to be the stupid question of the day.
Okay.
My insurance company said, well, just have the detective write a letter that you're no longer a suspect. And I said, man, I just don't know that he's there. And I'm not sure that he looks at it that way. But if you do, I get you to write the letter. My sister, when I told her this as a lawyer, laughed so hard she fell out of the chair. So
Why
because
why would you need that?
because they don't want to pay if it turns out that I secretly went down to the school and shot my husband because I thought, hey, going into old age without Dan after 25 years, it's really what I'm looking for, you know.
Okay. Well, we never would do something like that. I
really didn't think so.
Yeah, I mean that's not something that we never do something like that. That's never been done. I've never heard of that being done.
I was shocked when he told me this. And the other thing he says, well, I said, so what happens if, in fact, based upon your, and this is such a stupid little policy. I can't believe they're making me jump through the hoops like this. This is only $40,000. And as my sister said, you know, usually when they do that, it's for millions. And I said, yeah, we weren't insured for millions. But the other thing is, I said, what happens if, in fact, this case never gets resolved? And they said, well, that has to go to up to the supervisors to be evaluated. And I'm thinking, great. So let me ask you my next question, which I know you're going to give me a vague answer, so I don't know why I'm asking. But have you got enough things that you really think you know, or you think you've got the potential to solve it at this point? When I saw you on Saturday, I didn't think you had that.
We are looking at a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I told you before, is that there's a lot of things to go through and review, because given the nature of what took place and how it took place, there's just a lot of people to talk to and a lot of just a lot of information to process. Because when we have something like this take place, we cast a wide net for information, right? And so it takes time processing some of that stuff. So that's kind of what's going on with that. And that's why and I apologize. I meant to get back to you sooner, but there's just a large amount of things still coming in, that I haven't even had a chance to look at yet. Just because there's just been, it's just a lot of things, right? So we're working on that. Both my partner and I are we've been working nonstop, just going through all of the different things. So
trying to hound you, real frankly, I want you to take as long as it takes because I want us to find this person. But I'm not hounding you. But I've also got my family saying, well, what do you know? What do you know? What do you know? And then somebody pops up and says, oh, this and that. And I'm thinking, well, we don't know this and that, but that doesn't matter.
Right.
Everybody has an opinion.
Right.
But when this woman asked for this today, I thought, I cannot even imagine in my wildest dreams she'd do that. But I thought, it's worth a shot. I'll ask,
Okay. Actually, I did have a couple of questions for you about a couple of things. The first thing was family members, Daniel's family members that live here in the area.
And that would be Jack and Karen, his parents.
So Jack and who?
Karen, his wife, Karen.
Oh, Karen. Okay.
And they live in Garden Home. They live at 7245 Southwest. And it could be Portland or Tigard, depending on, but it gets delivered to both. And 9722. And do you want their phone number?
Sure. And their last name's Brophy then?
Yes.
Okay.
Hang on just a second. I'll give you their phone number.
Okay, thank you.
Speed dial is not my friend.
Does he have any brothers or sisters?
Yes, but they don't live here.
But
So if you want to talk to any of them or anything like that, they're all coming in tomorrow, and they'll be here till Sunday. And the memorial service is going to be at the school from 4 to 6.
On Sunday?
On Friday.
Friday. Okay.
Yeah. So according to every TV show I've ever watched, the detectives sneak in and watch for somebody looking guilty. I'm just helping you out with tips.
Okay.
So
4 to 6 on Friday is the memorial. Okay.
And then Nathaniel is his son, and he lives here. And Nathaniel's last name is Stillwater, and his wife is Kate.
Right.
And
I think I have their info.
Okay, good.
And now you guys didn't end up having kids together, is that correct?
We did not.
Okay.
We didn't get married till I was 41.
Okay. And do you have any kids from previous relationship?
I do not.
Oh, okay. Okay. And then
basically Nathaniel is our sole heir regardless of which parent survived.
I gotcha.
I mean, I think of Nathaniel as my son as well.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, so we were reviewing some of the items in Daniel's wallet.
Okay.
And we found some what looks like medical ID cards.
For Kaiser?
No, for some other people.
ID cards for other people.
Yeah. So do
Weird.
And I'm just going to put out a couple of names to see if they're people that or that he would know. A Hugh, I think it's Nuo. It's an Asian name, NGO.
No.
How about a Darla Shaw?
No.
Okay.
Oh man, please don't tell me he had a secret life.
I don't think so, but there could be a perfectly good explanation for why they're there. But I just
Well, we were talking about that at dinner the other night, and I said, of course, I'm a TV watcher, as you could tell. I said, what if he turns out to have had a secret life? And they said, you knew where he was all the time, and that is absolutely true. He snored at night, and people would complain about their husbands snoring, and I said, hey, I know where he is every night.
Right.
I didn't feel that way about it.
Okay. I didn't know if that was there was some kind of thing. I didn't know if it was something where, he was, helping somebody out or some kind of thing, with picking up medication for somebody or something for some reason or.
No.
Okay.
I don't, the fact I don't know those names is really strange.
Okay.
I mean, I really felt we had a close relationship.
And like I said, it was in his wallet, so.
Sure.
I just was just curious about that. So, okay.
And the other thing I thought about, because you'd asked me what was in his wallet, was there was probably another card in addition that was the Nordstrom's card. But I think I hit all the cards with the Nordstrom's card.
Okay.
And medical, he might have had something from Willamette Dental, and he might have had something from Kaiser, but he shouldn't have had anything else.
Oh, and I think is there any particular reason why he would take pictures of people's like ID cards for medical stuff, or would there be something that he would do for?
Are you looking on his phone?
We did. I mean, we did do that. Yeah.
Okay, that's me. Okay, once you said that, I got it. Yes, I sell Medicare.
Oh.
Those are Medicare cards. So sometimes when I go out and see somebody and it's on a weird time, and they say, I'm dual eligible, which means they're eligible for both Medicare and Medicaid.
Yeah.
I have to call and find out all the information. So I take pictures of their cards. So when they say, and what was their date, and what was this, that's why those pictures are on there.
Oh.
From me. So,
they're from you.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
97, 98% of those pictures were taken by me.
Oh, okay. Do you use his phone, or is it?
No, our phones are interlocked because they're on the same
account. Okay.
So I have his numbers. He has my numbers.
Gotcha.
So you may really want to check with me as you go along on that, because I can tell you. But yeah, that is why those are on there.
Okay.
So it's because of the fact that it's so much easier for me to just take a picture, so I'm not taking their card with me.
Okay.
And most of the people I talk to are totally lost with Medicare.
Yeah. No, it's complicated. My dad is on that, so yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's all I needed to know then.
Okay.
Thank you.
That I'm glad we straightened out.
Yeah, cleared that all up. Cool.
Yeah, that would have been a really weird. Why would you have all this information?
Yeah, and it was my mistake. It wasn't in his wallet. For some reason, my partner said it's on his phone. It was on his phone.
Shaw could have been a client of mine, and both of those names could have been clients of mine. I just wasn't thinking of them in terms of connected with him.
Okay.
And I see hundreds of people.
Sure.
So, I don't even remember who, and people call me all the time and say, I'm the one with the dog, and like that narrows it down. And so I'm better with faces than I am with names.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your information, and really take your time. Do not let me get neurotic on you. Just slap me around and I'll go away.
No, it's fine. We're just, like I said, we're just, we got to work through things, so it does take time sometimes. Yeah. All right. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The call stood out to detectives as unique. In the following months of the investigation, the key piece of evidence so far was the surveillance footage placing Nancy in the area of the murder, and her lying to detectives about where she'd been that morning. She wasn't at home. There were several different cameras that placed her around the Culinary Institute in the window of time that Dan had been murdered. She also had a gun, and although the weapon in police custody was determined not to have been the murder weapon, it did show that Nancy could possibly be more familiar with guns than she let on, and if she was willing to lie about one thing, what's to say she wasn't lying about everything? Another note to point out was that the Oregon Culinary Institute was a maze. Anyone familiar with older colleges or universities can agree that generally they are difficult to navigate. OCI was no different. There were multiple kitchens, adjoining classrooms, storage rooms, a full restaurant, reception areas, student areas, and a teacher area. It is not simple to just walk in and immediately find what you're looking for unless you know the place. Dan was alone at the school for only 12 minutes. From the moment he disabled the alarms and when his coworker arrived at the school was only 12 minutes. That is such a small time frame to suggest that someone just wandered in and happened to find him there. The door was locked behind him, students couldn't get in, and his coworker was the one that unlocked the front door when she arrived at the campus. Dan also wasn't startled. He'd been bent over a kitchen sink when he was first shot. To suggest a stranger or someone Dan didn't know had come into the school and that person happened to find the only person in the school on a day when Dan didn't normally arrive that early. No one was expected to be there at that time. The school wasn't robbed, Dan wasn't robbed, he had cash on him, and the person who killed him left the building completely undetected and not picked up on surveillance. It's just too big a coincidence. Nancy, however, was seen on surveillance leaving the downtown area at 7:28 a.m., only minutes before Dan's body was found. It was the only vehicle to have been seen arriving, stopping, being in the area at the window of time, and then leaving OCI at the exact moments that detectives were looking for. They even went ahead and pulled every Toyota Sienna minivan with an Oregon plate in the area. There had been 9 total, and only one matched the vehicle seen on surveillance, and there was no doubt who was driving: Nancy. On September 5th, 2018, Nancy crampton-brophy was arrested on one charge of second-degree murder. She was held without bond while she awaited trial, which began on April 5th, 2022.
I did not shoot my husband, and I don't know even how to defend myself against the truth, you know.
Where we left off, Nancy was arrested on September 5th, and on the same day a search warrant was executed for Nancy's house and storage units. Nancy had a large group of people helping her organize, pack, and clean the house, so officers spent most of the day sorting through boxes. They were looking for a potential second weapon, documents, or anything that might be of value to the investigation. During the trial, we see just how much evidence detectives gained after Nancy's arrest. In the home, law enforcement seized 2 laptops, and while going through a series of boxes in a bedroom closet, they came across a box that said Scarves, Purses, GK. Officers obviously didn't know what GK stood for, but under a bunch of scarves, officers recognized a handgun case. Inside the case, officers didn't find a whole complete handgun, but instead all the parts to build an unserialized Glock 19 handgun. Nancy had never disclosed that she had ever purchased a second weapon, and this build-a-gun kit was certainly more advanced than the average gun owner, and it certainly didn't fit with Nancy's story of her and Dan having only purchased one gun for self-defense. When going through the laptops, detectives discovered that Nancy had recently started obsessively researching guns, how to build a gun, gun kits, and ghost guns. On December 24th, 2017, she made the purchase of the Ghost Gun Kit from ghostguns.com. The following February was when she purchased the handgun that she had handed over to law enforcement. She had done a lot of research, particularly in swapping out barrels. She had watched several YouTube videos on how to do it. The slide and barrel from the Ghost Gun Kit was slightly larger than the slide and barrel she purchased from the gun show. When law enforcement is doing ballistic testing, the marks or striations we see and are compared to come from the barrel of the gun. The striations on the gun Nancy purchased from the gun show didn't match the striations on the shell casings found at the crime scene. However, if that slide and barrel had been swapped out, That could account for why they didn't match. The barrel from the ghost kit wouldn't fit, so if Nancy had planned to swap out the barrel to deliver a clean gun to law enforcement, she would need another one that did fit. Nancy had 2 laptops, one that was newer, working and functional, and then she had an older one that wasn't working. The screen was broken, but the hard drive was still fine, and law enforcement was able to access the information from that computer. On it, experts found that Nancy had made an eBay account and made one purchase. On February 22nd, she purchased just a slide and barrel that would fit the gun that she purchased from the gun show, not the ghost gun. Nancy claimed that the ghost kit had been purchased as research for one of her novels. She said that she hadn't told law enforcement about it because she didn't consider it a weapon because it was still in parts. When asked about the additional slide she bought, she said that it was just research for her book, just like the ghost gun. She said that she was writing about a character who was escaping a captive situation by ordering pieces to a gun bit by bit in the mail. But if that were true, why did she get an additional slide and barrel that didn't fit the gun that she was researching? Let alone to say that the Brophies couldn't afford all of these purchases. In total, between the handgun, the ghost gun, and the slide and barrel, that was almost $2,000 that the Brophies didn't have.
And you found yourself on the website, searching around. What, I mean, you're saying you bought this gun kit as a research. When did that story start in your head?
It came together when I read that story. When I read that article in the paper about this guy, and all of a sudden I knew how I could twist it and make it into a story. You know, ideas come, out of the blue, and when they come sailing by, you write them down so you don't forget them, and then sometimes you act on them.
And that was November of 2017?
Sometime in November of 17.
You read the article, started doing research.
Mm-hmm.
And you visited the Ghost Guns website several times without purchasing anything.
That's true.
And what were you searching for on the Ghost Guns website?
Research.
What were you looking for?
I was looking. Keep in mind, I know nothing about guns at this point. I know nothing about guns. And so what I was trying to do, if I'm going to write a story on building a gun, I got to learn a lot about guns in the time frame that I have. I cannot be the person who knows nothing and write a story anybody would believe.
Okay. And were you doing other research online regarding ghost gun build kits?
Not that I remember. I was pretty happy with the Ghost Gun site, and I know there were other sites that did similar things, but the Ghost Gun site made it seem simpler than some of the others.
Okay. And you felt that it provided you some information on how the build would occur?
Yes.
Were there plans or anything on there?
What do you mean exactly? Plans? You mean like architectural plans, like plans that show like when you're putting IKEA furniture together plans?
I guess. I don't know.
Not that I saw.
And so I guess what you're saying is then when you decided to purchase one, you just thought that it was going to be easier to build.
I leap into the water first. Yes. Dan's our researcher in that regard.
You are a researcher, or you're not?
No, I said that backwards. I am a person who, once I have an idea, tends to leap forward. Dan, once he has an idea, tends to research it to death. And then the chickens are a perfect example of this. He would read to me at night from the romantic books called Chickens in Your Backyard or Chicken Tractors. But when we got chickens, Dan had a whole plan for how they were going to work. If I had thought, hey, chickens would be fun, we would have had a plan, build it as you go plan. He was just a planner, and I was not.
So were you researching for a book or not?
I'm sorry, did I go off target there? I was researching for a book, but I wasn't researching beyond here. Let me see if I can say this simpler than I'm doing it. I was researching for a book, but it didn't occur to me that putting the ghost gun together would be as complicated as it was. What occurred to me was, hey, here's this system I can use. And when, now that you mention it, when I got the ghost gun in this little case, there was instructions in there, I'm fairly sure. I'm not sure now that I've said that, sorry.
Initially, she had told detectives that neither she nor Dan handled what we're going to call the gun show handgun. But at her trial, she said that they had.
Stated you bought this ghost gun build kit and you realized you couldn't put it together.
No, I realized it was more intricate. I didn't realize I couldn't put it together. It was more intricate than I had thought it would be.
Okay, and based on what?
Based upon the fact that it was supposed to be few parts, and I thought it was a few too many parts.
What steps did you take to actually try to build it?
I didn't take any because I wasn't ready to write that story yet.
You decided to write that story months prior.
Yes,
But you weren't ready to start writing it.
that's right.
So what was the need to buy the gun at that point?
I was celebrating. It was Christmas.
Right. But what was the need to buy the gun if you weren't writing the story yet?
Mr. Overstreet, we have had testimony upon testimony upon testimony about the fact Dan was a collector. Dan wasn't a collector by himself. I had my little piles of stuff. You know, what I found, what I have found in life is if you see something you want it, you can afford it, buy it now, because circling back for it, it may or may not be there.
And so now you're a gun collector?
No. Now I have a piece of writing information research.
Did you said you didn't take any steps to try to build this gun.
I did not.
And I want to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 25. First of all, do you recognize this?
Yes.
Do you recognize all the parts in here?
Well, you're further away than I would say, but certainly it looks like all the parts are there.
Is this what it looked like when you got it?
Yes.
Approximately.
Approximately.
Okay. And you saw this part in the kit?
I did.
Was there anything you needed to do to this to make it functional?
I hadn't gotten that deep into this gun. I'm not sure how to answer that question because the answer is I don't know.
Was there anything in the instructions or anything you saw online that made you think that you needed to manipulate this part?
And once again, I go back to I don't know because there are a slew of parts. You know, the only thing I can attribute it to is when you buy an IKEA thing, there are pieces that come fairly close together. And that isn't where you celebrate. You celebrate the little bags of all, you don't celebrate the little bag. Let me say this sentence again where it makes sense. You're delighted to see pieces more or less together. All the little parts, you're less delighted to see.
And is this why you never even opened these little baggies?
I wasn't ready to start yet. I didn't want them misplaced.
Okay. And so you made no attempts to try to build it. You didn't do any further research because you weren't ready to write this story?
That's right.
Okay. Thank you. Your defense attorney stated in opening that you knew, or that you thought that you knew, that Nathaniel had previously done a build kit.
Yes.
You knew that, or thought that at least.
I thought he had said that, and I believed him.
When you have this story to do a gun build kit, and you actually, when purchased a gun build kit, you didn't ever talk to Nathaniel about his experience with a build kit.
No, and that wouldn't have been where I would have gone with that. Where I would have gone first would be to my father-in-law, Jack, who I knew had every equipment in the world and could help me drill out the parts that needed to be drilled out.
Okay, but you didn't do that either.
No, because I wasn't ready to start yet.
And how did you know you needed a drill press?
Because it was on one of the videos.
One of the videos.
Uh-huh.
How many did you watch?
I don't know.
Why were you watching videos if you weren't writing the story yet?
I was watching videos to see how to put it together.
But I thought you weren't ready to put it together.
I'm not ready to put it together, but that doesn't mean I'm not researching what I have to do to get it ready to get put together.
Okay, so now you're doing research online.
We have stated previously, and I am not backing down from that I investigated. One of my friends has a sign over her desk that says, only James Michener gets to use all his research. You research everything to maybe come up with 6 sentences in a book that will make the book more realistic. So yeah, I do tons of research.
You do a lot of research.
I do.
So I'm just having a hard time having that make sense with what you said about planning and preparing.
Dan was a better planner than I was.
Hang on, let me ask you a question.
I'm so sorry.
You stated yesterday that you're not a planner. Did you say
But
that?
I did say that, but let me put a caveat on that.
Please.
I am not a planner in the initial stages the way Dan was, but you know, I rarely go into anything willy-nilly, and I rarely do anything that I don't complete.
States Exhibit 82 showed that you were doing some of your research, maybe, on February 1st. You were searching for gun shops at that time.
I'm not sure what State Exhibit 82 is.
Okay, it was your some of your internet history.
Okay.
It was showed to you yesterday by your counsel and asked to you by your counsel about February 1st, and you're searching for gun shops in Portland. What were you searching for?
That was different. I wasn't researching that. When I'm looking for gun shops in Portland, it was not for gun pieces. At this point, it's on a whole different conversation. That's writing, and that's a little cubicle in and of itself in my life. What Dan and I were talking about was, did we need to own a gun at this point? And while we had both been adamant anti-gun people for a long time, the last 3 or 4 years had changed how we felt about that. And we were discussing it and had been discussing it for well over a year.
So as what was described yesterday as a left-leaning individual,
Yes?
your response to gun violence in the country was to buy a gun.
In 2017, one of the memes of the left was, if we continue to be anti-guns, does that mean that everybody in the country who will own a gun but the people on the left? And it was a serious concern. Lots and lots and lots of people were changing their ideas about gun ownership because the country had become so diversified.
Well, Ms. Brophy, I appreciate a meme as well and what other people's opinions might be, but I'm asking your position as somebody who was so anti-gun, in fact, that your law enforcement husband wasn't allowed to have a gun in the house.
No.
Hang on.
Sorry.
So anti-gun, but your response to gun violence increasing in this country was to buy a gun yourself. Yes or no?
Yes, with a caveat.
At what point, from the time you received this ghost gun to June 2nd, did you decide that you were not going to use it?
That we're speaking now of the gun that we bought at the gun show.
No.
Oh, all right. Ask me the question again, please.
This ghost gun that I just showed
Right.
you, what point did you decide you were not going to use it?
I never decided I was not going to use it.
Is that why you kept it?
I kept it because eventually I was going to put it together and write this story.
Okay. And you decided the way to keep it would be to put it in a box with scarves and purses and store it in storage.
No. What I decided was to store it away until I reached the point that I would do it, but I was trying to get moved at that point. Certainly there was, I didn't see another big option there, and I even marked the box because at any point I expected the police to come back to me and say things like, Does Dan have a computer? Do you all have a computer? Can we look at any of this? Do you all have anything else? So I marked it so I could find it again. That was for the police benefit. That wasn't for mine.
Oh, oh.
I marked the box that I packed that it had a gun kit in it because I thought sooner or later the police are going to come back to me. And the police never once talked to me after that.
Did you literally just say that was for the police's benefit?
That was literally what I said. I marked the box for the police's benefit so that I could find it again when the police came back.
For what?
Well, I sort of thought that if the police didn't find something, they would want to come back and re-interview, and I would be able to show them things. I thought the fact that all they had was Stan's phone and not a computer from us they may have reached a dead end and said, Mrs. Brophy, is there anything you can give us that would help? Any electronic equipment? Anything else? So I was kind of in my mind making a list. At that point, silly me, since I believed I didn't kill my husband, I didn't think I was a serious suspect.
Despite you telling people that you were.
I told people I was the suspect because it's always the wife.
All right. So you lost me there for a minute. Let's circle back. You said something about computers.
Right.
I didn't ask anything about computers. I'm asking about a gun.
You're asking why I was marking things for the police.
I did not ask you that.
Okay.
I think maybe that's where I got a little lost.
Okay.
You said that you marked that box for the police benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you thought that was important to the police, that they might want this gun kit?
I had a hard time believing that I would be interviewed by the police for 45 minutes. We would have a brief conversation on the telephone, and I would never hear from them again till the case was solved. I thought for sure the police would come back and say, is there anything else you've got that could help us? And that would have included the gun kit.
Let's make this easier. What is the relevance of this gun kit to the police?
None, but we had it. I figured they'd ask for it sooner or later.
Why would the police ask you for a gun kit that they don't know that you own? I'm failing to understand what your rationale was for making this available to the police. You think it's so important to them that at some point they're going to come asking for it, but you don't call them.
I figured the police were doing the police job the way the police did it, that they probably did not need, I will be the first to tell you, I got my detective's license on TV. And I can guarantee you I had ideas on how this case should have gone. But I sort of figured the police had more experience and they were the ones in charge.
So you think you have relevant evidence to a murder investigation, and you don't think you should mention it to the police?
How does a gun kit, even though I marked it, how is a gun kit relative evidence?
I'm asking you.
I'm asking you because I don't think it is, because it's never been put together.
Then why would you mark it for the police?
Because I figured the police would come back and want to know.
So what else did you think was relevant to the police investigation that you marked and did not share with them?
I thought they would eventually want to know about the computers. I thought they would eventually want to go through the computers and see what they could find, if anything, that would help them.
And did you give them a computer that belonged to Dan?
No. We had a computer. They never asked for it. But in my mind, I knew they would eventually, if they didn't solve the case by somebody coming in and confessing, they would eventually come back and say, can we see your computer? My computers weren't packed because I thought they were relevant to the police if the police wanted to go in that direction.
Well, that's not exactly true, right? I mean, you had a computer in storage.
No. I had a computer in a box in one room and a computer by the bed in another room. That's not in storage.
Right, one in a box in your room. What about the one that was in the storage unit?
There was not a computer in the storage.
So there wasn't a laptop in the storage unit?
There was not.
Okay.
What your guys' testimony was, they found the computer in a bedroom and they found the computer in a box in the other, what had been the office.
Mm-hmm. And You would agree then that the stuff that was found on the computer that has been shown here in court was on the computer that was packed away in a box?
I think that's how they did it, but you know, it were the two computers.
Why did you get a new computer in March of 2018?
When you open the computer, the old computer, you can't read the screen because it's become lines across it.
So you did all your research of all these guns on one computer, then packed that away and put it in a box in the closet, and then you got a new computer. Is that right?
I get a new computer every year. I take a computer with me when I go out to the fields. I beat a computer up. I buy a fairly inexpensive computer because I know I'm replacing it the next year.
And you thought the police would want that, but you didn't give it to them.
The police never contacted me again. I assumed that they were doing their job and didn't want my interference.
Nancy also claimed that while she had been packing the house for sale, she specifically packed the ghost kit and marked it in the event that detectives might want it. Because if she was anticipating as detectives wanting to see it, why didn't she just tell them she had it and given it to them in the first place? She'd had it long before she had the gun show handgun. And during the search, investigators noticed one piece missing, which is this sliding barrel. It wasn't with the ghost kit, and it wasn't packed in the house, in the storage unit, or anywhere else. Nancy stated that it was just somewhere in the house. It must be there, but they went through every box, and they could not find it. She stated that the last place she remembered seeing it was on the floor of her bedroom closet. Now, this just isn't just like an item, any sort of like item in a home that you just might have misplaced. This was key evidence that would have exonerated her as a suspect if she had just been able to produce it and say, look, it doesn't match. Job done. That's it. Case closed. I didn't murder my husband. But this was the only item not recovered, and it was one of the only things Nancy couldn't remember. We also see from Nancy's cell phone records that she goes to a gun range 2 days in a row once the eBay slide and barrel arrive. She claimed that she was in the area looking for property to buy, but the area she was in wasn't residential land or even private land. It was government-owned land, and it wasn't for sale. And because it was used as a gun range, there really wasn't anything else around it for miles, which you would like to see at a place where people are just free firing bullets. This particular gun range was basically just a wooded area, and you could just show up and start shooting. There wasn't a check-in or any sort of security in the area. It wasn't that kind of shooting range. And I think we can safely say this was another lie from Nancy. When faced with the evidence of her car being seen on surveillance footage, Nancy could never really explain why or how she got to downtown that morning.
You've seen all the video of you driving around downtown at this point, right?
Yes.
Seen the still photographs from that.
Mm-hmm.
And you testified on direct that it looked like your van.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't quite say. You do agree that that is you at this point, right?
You know, I do. But I would say that it took me a while to get to that stage.
Yeah. But as you sit here today, you agree that it is you driving that van that morning.
Yes, but I also think that only because of the date stamp can I tell you it was that morning.
Right. You're not challenging that. You're agreeing that that is you.
We have more things to challenge than me driving around in this case.
You would agree that you're driving around and in front of the Culinary Institute at the exact time that Dan is being murdered?
No, actually, I don't agree with that. I was driving around for a full hour before Dan got murdered. I was down there before Dan ever got to school. Was driving around riding for a full hour. I was only in that vicinity for 6 minutes, and I don't know that Dan was murdered in that 6 minutes. You know, we agree that he was murdered in that time frame, but in terms of when he arrived and shortly thereafter. But whether it's not in that 6 minutes or not, I don't know.
I'm sorry, did you just say that you were driving around writing?
Yes, that's what I was doing, was driving around writing. I testified to that yesterday, that I would find a place to park and I'd jot down ideas.
I thought you didn't know that you were driving.
Yesterday, what I testified for was that when I was sitting in there, I could remember being in the parking lot writing. Didn't I say that yesterday?
No.
Okay.
So let's go back over.
Okay, let's go back.
View. So it says Brophy, don't ask questions. Mr. Overstreet, don't answer questions.
Sorry.
So yesterday, you stated that you remembered a time being in that area, and you were riding. There was a white van. There was a man going back and forth between the white van and some other location. You assumed that he was working on the van. It was distracting to you, and that you decided to leave. Do you remember that? Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay. Your attorney then asked you if that was on June 2nd.
And I said I did not know.
Right. So if you do not know, you have no memory of driving around downtown on the morning of June 2nd, how can you sit here today and say that I was driving around writing?
Because if I was down there, that's what I was doing. And you're right, I stand corrected that I should have answered the question differently and said I don't know. But I do know, based upon the timestamps, that I was down there an hour before Dan died. And that I was only down there for 6 minutes or less from the time that he signed into the building until you see me again leaving the area.
Right. That 6 minutes, you just happened to be in front of the Culinary Institute during that time.
No, I wasn't.
Did you see the video where you can see your van turning off of 17th onto Jefferson at 7:28 a.m.?
I did see that, but that doesn't mean I was in front of the Culinary Institute. That means I would have come up from another street to have gotten there.
But you're not seen on any other cameras until that moment.
But as you all testified, if there's a train, you can't see when people cross Madison. So I could have been, and what I actually think I was, if this is having thought about it for a while, is in another parking lot off Madison at that point. So I can say at 7:28, I definitely turned the van and was driving there, and we all saw it. But I have no idea, and I know I wasn't parked in front of the building, so what I would have been is riding someplace else and coming around. Now, I'm doing this based upon putting stuff back together, not based upon actual memory.
Right, you said you know that you wouldn't have been parked in front of the building, but how would you know that?
Because I would have gone inside. Because I would have said, "Hi, Dan, how are you?" Because when Dan came out of the building, he would have said, "Hey, Nancy, how are you?" You know, we're not foreigners. We know each other.
How do you know you didn't go in the building?
I know I didn't go in the building because I didn't kill Dan. You know, I know that for a fact.
If you have no memory, how do you know you didn't go in the building?
You know, I'm reconstructing this, but I'm reconstructing this based upon what I know in my heart. And what I know in my heart is the reason why I have no memory is because I was stunned by the fact Dan was dead. And I wouldn't have been stunned if I'd been in the building and shot him.
I didn't suggest that you did go in to shoot him. What I'm suggesting and asking is, did you just go in the building? And how would you know if you didn't?
I agree that, but he wasn't part of my focus that morning. My focus was on my story and getting it out and getting it done, you know. And Dan is at work. You know, your wife doesn't drop in to see you at work just because she's driving by. You know, she assumes you're working. I assume Dan is working.
You did it 2 weeks prior.
I did it for a specific purpose, which was to go to the bathroom.
Right. So, Ms. Brophy, would you agree that it's possible that you went into the OCI on the morning of June 2nd to use the bathroom?
No, I wouldn't.
Impossible.
I would say it was impossible.
Even though you have no memory of it?
Even though I have no memory of it.
Her first initial story that we hear on the tape that she has with the police death notification was that she was home all morning. But during trial, she changed her story a bit to saying that she possibly could have gone to Starbucks to get a coffee because that was her routine. But then she said the day before that it was Dan who went and got her coffee every morning, and it was one of the things that she loved most about him.
He ordered a chai tea latte. We had our drinks.
Did Dan know your order?
Yeah.
Did he often go to Starbucks in the morning to get your
He did.
coffee? Was that really the routine?
That was really the routine.
You would wake up, stay in bed, he'd bring you Starbucks.
Mm-hmm. Even when we were on vacation, he would go out and find coffee for me. And even if we were in a foreign country, that was our routine. And he would come back and I would get up and get dressed and drink coffee.
Is that every day or most days?
Most days, He was a tea drinker, and so he drank Lapsang Susong. And Lapsang Susong is a strong smoky tea. And I love this about him. He drank that because he read a book by James Michener called Centennial. And in it, they talked about how the Scottish traders drank this smoky tea. And Dan was so interested in it, he went out and got some and tried it and liked it. Now, how can you not love a guy who has chosen a literary reference for his tea? We were a team.
In the morning that Dan died, you expected him to have a cup of his tea.
I did.
Then, when faced with further evidence that her bank statement didn't show that she went to Starbucks that morning, she said that she probably paid in cash. But we see from her bank statements that would have been very unusual. She said it was her habit to utilize the drive-thru, and we see she's very consistent in how she uses her debit card to make her Starbucks purchases. It's like clockwork. And we see from her bank statements that she very consistently uses her debit card to make all of her purchases. She really doesn't seem to be the kind of person that carries cash. She also herself says she doesn't carry a purse. She just keeps her bank cards in her bra. Another example of is she digging around her bra for loose change or cash to pay for her Starbucks? I don't think so. Nancy's demeanor at trial was also very relaxed. She was very emotionless during the numerous testimonies in this trial, and when she took the stand, she was allowed to remove her mask. I watched nearly the entire 6-week trial and was really shocked when it was announced that Nancy would take the stand. In my experience watching trials, it usually never ends well for the defendant. I immediately knew this was not going to be a good idea, and from the second she sat down, this was confirmed. She smiled at people in the courtroom, laughed with her lawyers, and told little jokes and stories like she was at a tea party instead of her own trial. You would never have guessed she was there because she was on trial for murder.
We needed to pay off the credit cards, that's absolutely true, but we needed to get the house in shape.
What was the interest on the credit card?
I don't know.
It's about 15%.
I don't know because Dan paid them and he paid attention, but I think one of them was higher than the other.
What was the interest on the 401k loan?
It wasn't very high at all. It was a really low interest. I was kind of surprised by that, but I can't tell you exactly what it was.
So let's just hypothetically, if Dan's credit card was 15%.
It was probably 5 on the 401k
right.
loan.
So would you agree that it would make more sense to pay off a higher interest credit card and then just save that money or use that for something else?
I would agree if, in fact, we hadn't already had a plan in place and working on it.
We heard a lot about the yard.
A
lot about the yard. We got a little conflicting information about who actually cleaned it.
Yes. I heard that myself.
What do you have to say about that?
James Denny did the heavy duty work. Trust me, he had the tractor, he did the heavy duty work. But Susan and her boyfriend did a lot. They called it something else, but I thought it was a ditch witch. And they pulled up a lot of the blackberries. So it was a combination effort that everybody's laying claim to, and I don't care. Fine. As long as it got done, I didn't need to, I could have handed out ribbons. You got this, you got that, but that was just sarcastic. Ignore that. What I would really say is everybody worked hard on it. Everybody deserved credit for it.
Sounds like you had a lot of help.
I did.
Now, Nancy seemed to have an excellent memory, but claimed several times to have cognition issues, telling the courts that her mother had dementia and had died of dementia, and she expressed her greatest fear was also experiencing a mental decline. She could remember everything she did the day that Dan died, except what she did that morning. The prosecution did an excellent job during their cross-examination of Nancy.
Preparation for this trial, you haven't seen your bank records?
Well, I saw them months and months ago.
Okay. And you've heard testimony that you go to Starbucks quite a bit.
I do.
I think somebody said almost $1,000 in a year or something like that.
Yeah, I was shocked by that figure too.
I think we all would be. But there's no charge for Starbucks on the morning of June 2nd.
Yes, but if you go through my bank records, you will see there's no charge for Starbucks a lot of days when I know that I had coffee. If I had cash, I could have paid cash. Keep in mind that I don't have my purse with me because I'm not carrying a purse. I'm not wearing a bra, so I don't have a credit card with me. I don't have my phone with me, so I would have had cash and just given it to them.
It makes more sense that you'd have cash over a card?
It makes more sense if I don't have a bra that I don't have a card with me.
And you do agree you left your phone at home that morning?
I agree I wasn't wearing a bra, so my phone wouldn't have been in my bra.
Right. So just this day is the day that you paid cash at Starbucks?
I pay cash at Starbucks a fair amount.
Right. So in the morning, if Dan doesn't bring you coffee, it would be normal for you to get up, not fully get dressed, run to Starbucks, use cash, use a card, who cares, right? Go back home and write.
Mm-hmm.
That was normal.
That would be a normal morning.
Okay.
On a day when I wasn't committed to doing something else.
Right. But on June 2nd, now you're saying that morning you got up. Well, let's take a step back.
Okay.
The night before, your testimony was that you went to sleep late or went to bed late. And when you went to bed, you went up to that attic bedroom.
Yes.
And Dan was already in bed.
Yes.
And he was asleep.
Yes.
And the reason you went to bed late was because of a leak? Was that the reason you went to bed late, or it just happened to be?
No, I frequently went to bed much later than Dan.
I see.
Dan went to bed early because he got up early.
Okay. What time did he go to bed that night?
I don't know.
Okay. What time did you go to bed?
I don't know that.
Well, you said it was late. What's your reference point?
Well, it was later than Dan. My reference point was that there was water on the floor.
Okay.
And the water on the floor, I was trying to clean it up enough that, we didn't step in it in the middle of the night and didn't make it worse.
And which sink are you talking about?
The sink in the bathroom upstairs. So my bedroom is long and narrow. And right off of my bedroom to the left is a bathroom. And as I stepped in there, we go from carpeting to sheet goods, and I could feel the water under my feet.
Okay. I think it was maybe just a little confusing. There was some testimony about a problem with the kitchen sink, but you're not talking about the kitchen sink.
No, and I thought that was not, I thought it was confusing, but I also thought at that point I was probably making a point rather than pointing to the right sink, just pointing to a sink in general.
Okay, fair enough. I just want to make sure we're talking about the right sink.
Right.
I just wasn't clear on that. So you're talking about the sink with the leak that was of concern on June 1st was in the bathroom upstairs. Okay. So you kind of clean it up. You go to bed late. It sounds like maybe you woke up at some point in the night.
I wake up every night in the middle of the night.
Do you have a specific recollection of waking up in the middle of the night that
Nope.
night? Okay. And by that, you mean like you have to use the restroom or something?
Or, I really don't sleep very well at all, and I particularly don't sleep when I'm wound up. And when I'm working on a story, I'm wound up. So I'm just not a great sleeper anyway anymore.
So when you wake up, was Dan already up?
Yes, Dan was standing over the sink in the bathroom.
And what was he doing?
He said, why do we have all these towels in the sink? And so that was what we talked about, was the fact that I think there's a leak, and I had felt underneath, but I couldn't feel it, on the, whatever that long pipe's called, that, he said, well, I'll get something, he said, I'll get something, or maybe I know he got something because I saw it. I'm not sure which way this is the truth here. But when I dealt with it later, there was a white bucket underneath. But the last thing I saw him doing was taking the wet towels down the stairs.
That's the last time you saw him?
Mm-hmm.
During her cross-examination, and this is in the trial where I felt that things were over for Nancy, when she started to get flustered. She looked to her lawyers every time she was telling a lie, and at one point she even asked them to confirm if the statement she had just said was her truth, essentially. She had an excellent recall when it came to insignificant questions, but when she gets flustered and starts saying, I don't know, I'm not sure, I might have said, are only the conversations that she had already had, that she had already made statements about. She'd been already caught in several variations of her stories during the trial, which to me as an observer came off as her not being able to remember what she'd lied about.
Nancy didn't want this lifestyle. She wanted to be an expat. She wanted to move to Portugal. Not Dan. In fact, Nancy wanted something so differently, something that Dan couldn't give her. She had him take on another job. Not to help out a friend. For money. Nancy knew there's financial struggle. She saw an opportunity for Dan to work more and bring in more money to maybe alleviate the finances. And so Dan goes to work at Avamere, and he's working both jobs. And what did you hear? What did that do to him? It was running him into the ground. He was exhausted. Nancy even commented several times to people that Dan was changing. Yeah, he's tired. Working all the time. So yeah, does he come home and lay on the couch a little bit more? Watch a little bit more TV? Probably. Is that what Nancy wants? No. She wants Dan to do stuff for her. Maybe Dan wasn't cooking as much for her as she liked. Maybe Dan wasn't giving her enough attention. This wasn't working for Nancy. Dan was a problem. This isn't just about money, it's about the lifestyle. And Dan couldn't give it to her. I'm almost to a stopping point, I promise, Your Honor. No one said that Nancy didn't love Dan. We didn't bring any witnesses in here to say, we don't think she loved him. It must have been a problem. Nobody said that. I'm not asserting that. She probably did love him. But she wasn't getting the lifestyle that she needed. She had to make a change. Defense made a big deal about compromises. Well, if Nancy wants to move to Portugal, Dan doesn't, maybe they'll just take some trips, more trips. That was the compromise. I think once we finally got to an understanding of what compromise meant, if you remember, we think that that's probably the final compromise. And that's what was going to save this whole situation. So we got this money now, we got this plan, and we're going to compromise. But those trips aren't Portugal. Those aren't lavish trips out of the country. The farthest they went out of the country was to Vancouver. Then they went to Malibu or Monterey Bay, went to an aquarium, took a cooking class, and then their next big trip was to Mount Rushmore. That's not good enough for Nancy. Nancy needs Portugal. Nancy wants more. These little trips aren't going to do it. As I said, this murder is not entirely motivated by money. It's that lifestyle change that that Nancy needed to have. And as you heard from Dr. Warford, as I've mentioned several times, Nancy is a problem solver, and Dan has become a problem in her life. She needs to change it, and there's no other way. And divorce is not an option. Nancy even said that on the stand when we talked about divorce. Divorce is expensive. What is Nancy going to get after a divorce? They split half their earnings, or I'm sorry, half their stuff. The house sold for $565,000. It ultimately sold for that. After you pay realtor fees and after you pay off the mortgage, there's maybe a couple $100,000 left. They're going to split that. So she gets $100,000. That's her plan. She's not going to get the lifestyle she wants. That's all she gets is $100,000 out of this. Divorce was not an option for Nancy. The only way that she could live the lifestyle that she wanted was to murder Dan and be entitled to upwards of $1.6 million.
I doubt Nancy will ever admit what she did, but it is clear in this case with the mountain of evidence, though circumstantial, is undeniable. Her legal team was never successful in identifying another suspect. In this case, nothing else made sense. We see in the trial there are a few instances where Nancy's mask comes off. This is one instance that, for me, showed Nancy's sweet, loving persona was only that, a fake persona.
So I'm assuming that's Sarah Gitchell.
Who's the voice that you hear?
Yes, that's my voice.
That's your voice?
Yes.
And this is a phone call that you made to Sarah Gitchell?
Could be, yes. That's what it says.
Okay. Why don't we go ahead and go back to the beginning? Play that.
So far, they haven't covered anything that we didn't know. I mean, they had all these little girls who cried today, and I've seen all these little girls. Well, I've seen particularly the Spanish girl cry 3 times now. So, she cries off cue.
Didn't I just say essentially that?
That's your response after hearing these people testify to their experience. That's what you thought about that?
I thought it was interesting that Corinda Perez, when she told me, did not cry. When she's on the stand, she cries and she sobs and she carries on. I think she had a terrible, terrible experience. That I totally agree with. And I am sympathetic to that. But I also think she can cry on cue when she gets on stand. Because she didn't cry when she told me. She told me and I cried. When we went to an event that she came up and said, I am the person who did CPR. And I immediately burst into tears, and she told me the story. And I told her how wonderful I thought she was, that she had done that. But
you seem to be a couple steps ahead of me throughout this.
Sorry.
You're expecting this?
I don't know if expecting that is what I would say. But I'm sorry, I'll try and be quieter.
When you keep saying Corinda Perez over and over and you keep mentioning her name, in this audio, you don't actually say Corinda Perez.
Okay.
That is how she spoke of a woman who tried to save Dan's life. She almost seemed jealous that she was getting so much support from the community. We see it slip again when the prosecutor starts to read back her own statements from her article, How to Murder Your Husband.
My last question to you, Ms. Brophy, is if there's one thing that you know about murder, is it that anyone is capable of doing it?
I absolutely believe that. And I believe that because, once again, if it's your child or the person in front of you, 10 to 1, you will find yourself capable of murder. I think most people don't murder for flimsy reasons. I think people get pushed into a corner where they have no other options. I think people murder because they're protecting somebody they love. I think people murder, well, there's some mercy killings perhaps where people murder to save the person they love pain, but I think that's rare. I think people murder in rage. I don't think people murder because they say, well, we'll just sneak down and do this quickly. I think if you're going to murder somebody, 10 to 1, that person knows that you are not happy with them. I don't think that should come as a mystery, to anybody. I don't think people murder willy-nilly out of the just because, yeah, financial reason is a big reason. But going back to my case, there's not enough financial reason there to make it. I do better with Dan alive financially than I do with Dan dead. There's no financial gain here. We had solved our problem. I turned the book into an editor and I said, well, they had a problem here in October of 2017, but they had solved it. But then she murdered him in 2018 when they had solved their financial problem. Where is the motivation, I would ask you? An editor would laugh and say, I think you need to work harder on this story. You have kind of a big hole in it. I think people murder out of anger more than anything else.
All in all, I think this was a very good trial. We saw excellent lawyering from the prosecution. The judge was very patient and kind to everyone in the courtroom. Nancy's lawyers did their best to represent their client the best they could, and I think it was a very fair trial for her. But after so many weeks of trial, I was so glad when both sides rested their case. On May 25th, 2022, after nearly 4 years of waiting for justice, the jury came back with their final verdict.
All right, if we can have Mrs. Brophy rise. It says, we, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn in the above entitled cause, do find our verdicts upon the counts submitted to us as follows. Count 1, murder in the second degree, guilty. And then with regards to the 2 questions, the state alleging that during the commission of this felony, the defendant caused or threatened the use of a firearm, the answer is yes. And then the state further alleges that during the commission of this felony, the defendant and the victim were married, the answer is yes. Now, I will ask juror number 46, it indicates your number in the signature block, and that is you who put your number there? All right, and then by a show of hands, I'm going to ask everyone first whether the verdict of guilty is their verdict on count 1. Raise your hand if it is. All right, and then with regard to the question of caused or threatened the use of a firearm, if your answer is yes, raise your hand. And then lastly, if during the commission of the felony, the defendant and victim were married and your answer is yes, raise your hand. All right. Does either side have anything for the record?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
All right. The jury will be excused. We thank you for your time. Well, I do want to say to the family and friends of Chef Brophy, as he came to be described during this trial, I can't imagine what it's like to go through years of waiting to find resolution in this case. Although I never knew him, I did learn a lot about him through the various witnesses that testify. And I know that Karen Brophy said it was heartwarming to hear from them, because I think the thing that you can take away, which I hope gives you some small measure of solace, is that he was a mentor and a teacher to many and had an impact over a lot of people's lives. And hopefully they will turn and have an impact on others themselves as they teach. The impression I came away with was that he was a man of quiet dignity. And so I hope that this at least will bring some level of closure to you. Mrs. Brophy, if you can rise for sentencing. In Oregon, for the crime of murder in the second degree, the sentence is a life sentence. I'll order that you be considered for parole after 25 years. And we'll leave open restitution for 90 days. I will let you figure out, I know you want to pick a date right now, so we'll figure that out. I will waive other fines and fees given the lengthy prison time. You can have a seat.
Daniel Brophy's mother, Karen Brophy, she provided a written statement to have me read to the court.
Okay.
It's been a long 3.5 years for Jack and me. They've been a time of reflecting on the loss our family has suffered. What we heard on that September day, we could not believe. Nancy arrested? You were part of our family for over 25 years. Was that relationship all deception? My heart breaks if this is true. We will never understand how you could decide that it was an advantage for you to take the life of our son, that he did not deserve to live. So you took his life from all of us, a pawn in your plan? You will never know our beautiful great-grandchildren, Dan's grandchildren. These children deserve to know and love him as we all have. It has been heartwarming for us to hear from many what an amazing, wonderful man our son was. We always knew that, now the world does. I don't know what the rest of your life will be like. Not pleasant, I am sure, but we hope you will find God's grace ahead of you. Karen and Jen.
The years of deceit have spanned decades. From learning that your solution to my father being married to my mother was, I can fix that, to years of payroll and tax fraud that you waged on your employees. You've always thought you were one step ahead. Your largest financial contribution in the latter years was sending my father off to work an extra job so you could continue to pretend to be an author. My father possessed more knowledge, depth, accomplishments, recognition, and joy in life than a person as shallow and self-serving as yourself are capable of. Instead of rising to the occasion, facing life's challenges head-on, and contributing in a meaningful way, you opted to lie, steal, cheat, defraud, and ultimately kill the man that was, for some reason still unbeknownst to me, your biggest fan. You executed my father in an act of cold-blooded, premeditated murder, the man that did everything for you. Cooked your meals, washed your clothes, accepted your sedentary nature, supported your failed endeavors, and brought you into the warm embrace of our family. Your repayment for decades of dedication, trust, and love? To plot his murder on Christmas Eve, while in the presence of his parents and grandchildren. Pain you have delivered to us is immeasurable. Your theft of a parent and grandfather for such selfish reasons is unforgivable. You were, to borrow from your catalog, the wrong wife. Lying at the bottom of a river or buried in the earth somewhere was the instrument you used to destroy lives. Not only the life of the man that loved you unconditionally, but those of my grandparents that offered you acceptance and support, of my wife that took solace in knowing there was family on this side of the country to help support our growing family, of my eldest daughter who was beguiled by your feigned displays of nurturing, of the son my wife was 5 months pregnant with on the day he was murdered, who would have surely been my father's greatest admirer, and our youngest child who will never even know your name. You are a monster, and I am ashamed that I have to admit to my children that people like you walk amongst us, undetected, until the moment best serves to let narcissistic personality traits devolve into those of a full-blown sociopath. Unburdened by morality, empathy, compassion, and decency, you chose to extinguish the life of someone capable of giving all of those things to the many people that surrounded him. You lived in the shadow of a great human being. Instead of acknowledging your shortcomings and redirecting your delusions of grandeur, you chose to deprive this world of a teacher, a father, a grandparent, and someone who served as an inspiration to the countless lives he touched. I would suggest you be ashamed of your actions, but that would presuppose you possess the ability to think of anyone besides yourself. In the words of Gabriel Garcia Marquez, there's no greater misfortune than dying alone. Yet for you, Nancy, I can't imagine a more fitting end to this tragedy. Thank you, Your Honor.
And remember when Nancy said orange wasn't her color? Well, I guess, as luck would have it, the uniforms at the Multnomah County Detention Center are blue. Nancy will be eligible for parole when she is 96 years old. Enjoy prison, Nancy. Well, that is it for this video as well as this series. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you like the content and what I do over here, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss my next upload. If you enjoyed the content, please give the video a like. That would be much appreciated as it helps the channel to grow. We also have channel membership as well as Patreon if you want to support the channel. In the description box, you will find links to all my socials to connect with me as well as other goodies. But that is it for me. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you on the next one. Bye for now.